Zero, and I mean zero market value. What does that mean? Are you kidding me? Is that true? Is there any way that that is true when it comes to Nico? I'm up and leaving your school next chance I get.
Up and leave you?
I'm up and leave you. That's what the reports say, at least, and that's where we're going to start the show. He's in the transfer portal talking about Nico, and he has a tag, not a price tag, but a do not contact tag on himself. Diesel in the transfer portal. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He is Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson, and this is the Fan Upstate. So good to be with you on this hump day edition of the show. 48 of you already in on the stream, and it's good to see you there, man. Also, for those listening on 97.1 FM in Spartanburg, 97.7 in Greenville, and anywhere on the free Odyssey app, we want to hear from you on the latest regarding Nico and where you might think he could or should be headed. The text line, phone lines are open, 844-FAN-PHONE. That is 844-326-3663. Going to get into Nico. Obviously, we have a little bit of a breaking news as well. Several texts already on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line about the news that I broke about an hour ago now, Diesel. But a very sad day in the upstate as we kind of transition back to some local, and we're going to get right back into Nico. If you did not see it on Twitter about 48 minutes ago, I did release some news that Limestone University is announcing the closing of their doors effective at the end of the 2025 spring semester unless $6 million can be raised by the Tuesday meeting. I was told earlier that they actually need it raised by like Friday. So that's tough. Catastrophic news for Cherokee County and surrounding areas, Diesel, for a school that's been around since 1845.
Yeah, and for a school that, we've had the pleasure and the privilege to bring on multiple of their coaches across various sports, football, lacrosse, basketball. We've had all these guys on. They're great people up at Limestone University. And, from what we saw and what we've been seeing over the past year and a half, it seemed like the school was thriving. And it seemed like, the athletics focus of Limestone University was really serving the community and a great vehicle for a lot of young people, especially in our communities, to have a chance to go play college athletics and get a great education at the same time. But, you never really know what's going on behind the scenes, and it's just really unfortunate to hear this news.
There were, Diesel, to your point about thriving, there were portions of Limestone University, there were sports that were thriving. However, to your point, what makes everything go? We all know that money is the underlying factor that makes everything go in life. And from what I was told, that when it comes to Limestone's finances, they've been trending downward for quite some time. And this announcement today, obviously very shocking, very surprising to the entire community. It's on Twitter. It's on our Facebook page as well. And Limestone has officially sent their press release out as well. But, you're talking about Diesel, people who have jobs, and the landscapers, the cafeteria workers, the professors, and then you get to the student athletes who I'm guessing every student athlete today will have to think, I guess I've got to get in the portal, right? Or their athletic career might be over. So it is, from that standpoint, it is very heartbreaking. And for people that we know that work there, it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, there's players who expected to have a spot on a roster playing football this fall. And, Cole, it's just a fact of the transfer portal era is not every kid who goes into the transfer portal is going to find a spot. So some of them, their career is over. They may have been seeking a better opportunity, and they may not get any opportunity at all. Well, that wasn't supposed to be what was happening to these Limestone University players. And it's just unfortunately how it's worked out.
Yeah, my heart breaks for people that I know that work there. My buddy Charles Wyatt, who is fantastic and does a really good job, and people who are now, having to look for jobs, as well as the student athletes, that are in our area, Diesel, that I've covered and watched, and that are attending and plan on attending Limestone. It's tough. So with that, it will be an easy transition back to the portal, because you mentioned it earlier before we came on the air, Diesel. A lot of craziness already happening today with the portal window being open. But I don't know if there is a bigger story in all of sports right now when it comes to the portal than Nico. And we've talked about it every single day, on the radio this week, Diesel, you and I have. But he is now in the portal with a tag. And I ask you the same question that I asked myself and the same question that I asked the Tolos. Doesn't it feel like there's more to the story here? Or am I wrong on that? Does it not feel like there's more to the story, Diesel, from the standpoint of why would Nico's camp have let this happen without having a plan in place?
Yeah. We keep hearing that tampering is going on in all these college programs and guys are being induced off of rosters and offered this by agents being passed through this person or that person. And, you think that the deal is already done before a player up and says, you know what, I'm out of here, coach. I got to enter that transfer portal. You think that's the way that a lot of this stuff goes down, especially for the biggest names in the game. But that has not been the case with Nico. I'm reading a tweet right now from somebody connected to the Tulane football program who was talking about their attempt to get an offer to Nico. And it says here, Tulane put together an impressive offer, but too much back and forth between Nico's camp and the coaching staff. Tulane wanted to get a deal done quickly. The dad is LeVar Ball without the charm. Wow. LeVar Ball without the charm. Does anybody remember how damned annoying LeVar Ball was and having his own shoes and talking about all of his kids are the greatest? And God.
And he was on every show.
It was everywhere. I mean, he was going on The View, for crying out loud. He was everywhere. And, his confidence, while annoying, was at least amusing. But with Nick, and I don't know his last name, it's not Iamaliava. He's not out there talking. He's not out there chirping and cutting it up and giving schools a reason to give him a phone call.
It's so interesting, Diesel, because there's so many different facets. There's so many different arms and branches, right, of this story with Nico. And that's why I brought it up in the first segment, because, I know that he's a good player. Is he a great player? The jury's still out a little bit. He could be.
He could be.
100%. He could be. I think he has a great ceiling. He has a lot of potential. But what I said yesterday, Diesel, and you asked me the question on the show, how much do I think he would get? Well, I said, you know what? Somebody out there will probably be stupid enough to pay him what he wants. However, from the reports that I've seen and the reports that you've seen, the Barstool report, I could be wrong. And that could be the greatest thing ever, because if Nico doesn't get the money that he wants and he doesn't go to a school that's a contender in terms of winning a national championship, because that's what Tennessee was, right? They were in the college football playoff last year. Diesel, they lost in the first round. But if these Barstool reports and other reports are true that he has zero market, boy, maybe that, to your point on Monday, could be the best thing that happened to college football.
Look, he's a middle-of-the-road SEC quarterback who got his team to the college football playoff last year. And the middle-of-the-road SEC quarterback is probably top 2 or 3 quarterback in the Big 12 and the ACC and American Athletic, easily the best quarterback that would be in any non-Power 5 conference.
Sure.
But, his skills are marketable. Everything around him is not marketable. It's the conversation around him not showing up to practices, to him, essentially shutting off all conversations with Josh Heupel and staff. It's now the reports, Cole, that he and other players on the offensive side of the football were demanding more money prior to the Ohio State playoff game. So now there's a black cloud over whether or not he and his fellow offensive players were trying to hold out and maybe through the college football playoff game because they weren't getting the money that they wanted. I mean, that is a great reason to completely blackball someone from the game.
And how about the report we got yesterday from Ryan Shumpert, Diesel, talking about what happened when Nico was still in high school?
Yeah.
About wanting to leverage his contract.
Yeah.
When Tennessee started, 7-0? I mean, that's what's wild about it.
Whenever there's a paradigm shift in anything in life, right?
Yeah.
People are trying to figure out what to do, what the rules are, what can you get away with, what can you not get away with. And unfortunately, it takes someone taking their situation to the extreme as Nico has done, the demands, the threats to hold out, the actually not showing up, the black cloud over whether or not they threw a college football playoff game. And now, obviously, that right there is the wall. That is the worst thing you could possibly do. All of the things that Nico has done have been great reasons to not be interested in him if you were another school. But when you add them all up in totality, it is the great wall of dumbassery. And he very well could find himself on the outside of football next year.
Which would be great.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it? Is it bad for us to say that?
No, this guy sucks. He doesn't need to be in football.
Just want to make sure.
Go play in the FCS somewhere, and that's no disrespect to FCS programs. Right. Go play in Division II, Division III, NAIA. God. Go play in Scuba, Mississippi, down at junior college. I don't care where you go. You just got to get up out of here.
Hey, Tolos, let us know what your thoughts are. A lot on the stream already. We'll catch up on that in just a few minutes. The text line, the Hub City Spartan Burgers text line. Who won last night? How about them? How about them Spartan Burgers, baby?
Them Burgers.
I like it. 844-326-3663. Get in on the conversation. A loaded show coming your way. We're going to talk to Jack Veltri in the very next segment about the current situation with Pulmonary. Some audio from John Gruden, more portal conversation coming up at 4 o'clock. Masters conversation, a fascinating clip of audio from Ryan Clark Diesel that you had. Brock Hamrick from the Cherokee Chronicle will join us at some point in the 4 o'clock hour to talk about this news with Limestone closing its doors. That news that we just talked about to lead the show off is on our Twitter and Facebook page. And then Theo Vaughn, a comedian, had Lane Kiffin on this podcast as if that just didn't need to happen, right? Like major FCC violation.
I saw clips, Cole, of Tennessee baseball fans being interviewed in the stands at a game yesterday, and they said that Nico Iamaleava Lane Kiffin him by up and leaving in the middle of the night.
I love it.
Lane Kiffin is still a verb and not a good verb in Knoxville, Tennessee.
So much to get to. A loaded show. Your best bet is to turn it on and leave it on. And let's get into some of the comments on the stream. Kane said, "Hello, Brolos." And look at him changing his name now to Tolos Do No Ball. Are we getting Kane to come around? Are we seeing?
Well, there's a probationary period, okay? Number one, he has to remove that parentheses off of his handle, and then it's a 6-month probationary period. You got to make things right with us, Kane. You've run afoul of a lot of people over here on this side of the fence, so you got to figure out a way to make us all trust you.
He says, "Hello, Brolos. Seems like there's been some tampering going on before Nico held out on Tennessee, or his handlers are extremely stupid about negotiating deals." And that's the kind of the point that Kane made on the stream, Diesel, is what I wrote down on the rundown for the show today. But that's the part that I can't fully wrap my mind around. Like I told you on Monday, it doesn't surprise me that this is happening in college football with the landscape that the way it currently is. But it does surprise me. It does surprise me to Kane's point. You're telling me Nico's camp didn't think this out? You're telling me Nico's camp didn't think maybe we should all talk? Agent, whoever's involved, dad, parents, cousins, Nico, Diesel, maybe we should all talk before we pull the plug on this thing and don't show up to practice, because if they're the ones with their underwear around their ankles, boy, is it going to be a bad look for him and his family. That's what I can't understand.
Yeah, they did not think this through. I was telling you earlier, this was reported by Barstool that there's zero market for Nico Iamaleava right now. Multiple Power 4 general managers are saying that they are not interested in him. These are all back of house conversations, right? They're not naming themselves, and they're saying we talked to other GMs out there. We called the guy from Notre Dame. We called the guy from North Carolina, UCF. They are not interested in him either. Nobody seems to be interested in him. They thought, and by that, I mean the Nico camp, thought that they had some kind of leverage over the game. And there appears to be very little leverage for Nico out there. I bet you he is trying so hard to get some sort of a bidding war for his services, but I don't think he's going to find anybody.
It doesn't make sense from the standpoint of negotiating. Like, even if it's football, if it's college football, if it's pro football, if it's a job, if it's your job, Diesel, my job, if it's anything, don't you want to feel like you have the hand up in negotiation? Don't you kind of want to feel like you're going into it with the card that you can smack down right on the table, and any time during that conversation be the winner? It doesn't make sense from that standpoint because there was very little negotiation done, it sounds like, and I don't know why his camp would not have given this more time to work out. And I know it's April. You say, Cole, if he's going to jump ship, if he's going to get in the portal, he better do it now. I get that. But I don't understand the negotiation, the timing of it, unless there is more to the story that we don't know about an already arranged agreement with a UCLA by chance.
Here's where I think Nico's camp is failing. They are allowing the media to dictate the entire message about this scenario. We're hearing
100%
nothing from them. Nothing from them. I mean, if he wanted to come out and lie or something. I don't know. I mean, that might dig yourself into a deeper hole, but at least say something. Come out and say, hey, Tennessee promised us this, and they didn't give us that. You know, that seems to be the prevailing reason why a lot of guys enter the transfer portal after getting supposedly these big-time blockbuster deals to go somewhere. They promised me $1 million, but they only gave me like $700K. So I'm out of here, right? And there's a lot of people who will say, well, you promised it to him. Why didn't you pay up? They're like, well, we paid him $700K and he wasn't that good. That's not the point. You promised him something. I mean, at least come out and say something, because right now the entire weight of the narrative is that Nico is greedy, that his dad is an idiot, that they don't have any leverage, that nobody wants them. They need to get out in front of this thing and say something to the media.
JD on the YouTube stream says, can we not call it Nico's camp? It's all Nico's dad. And it may be. That's still Nico's camp, though, right? JD says Nico should just change his name to Nicole and go play women's flag football. That's terrible. Kane says, I believe they thought Tennessee was going to fold with it being spring, and Tennessee found out what they were doing and let them go. And I agree with Kane there. Don't you think so?
There's a reason why you have 3 or 4 other quarterbacks on the roster, and the transfer portal is just about to open up. Did they not think that there's another talented guy in the transfer portal? I mean, come on. What, man, would it not be the ultimate FU middle finger to Nico and camp by giving, if there's an elite quarterback in the portal right now, giving him $4 million, giving someone what Nico wanted?
Texter from the 809 on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line says any school that makes Nico a better deal than UT gave him risks promoting the same behavior from their players. Yeah, I mean, I get it.
I mean, if the school that's a smart text. If the school caves and gives him what he wants when he comes out there with his hand out, then everybody's going to come with their hand out. Well, why wouldn't you give me what I asked for? Why won't you give me more? Please pay me more. I want more. Give me a car. Give me this. Give me that.
It's true. It's true. It's an unbelievable situation all the way around. So
love this texter who says it feels like a modern day Maurice Claret. Great text. When we come back, South Carolina baseball is in dire straits. There's not enough midweek opponents to keep this team plus 500 over the course of the season, even though they got a win last night. We'll talk Gamecock baseball and the South Carolina spring game with Jack Veltri of Gamecock Central next. Is South Carolina Gamecocks athletics looking up or down? Well, a little bit of both. Depends on which program we're talking about. We'll talk about all of them right here, right now with Jack Veltri of Gamecock Central. We'll be talking Gamecock baseball, spring game, basketball, transfer portal, all of the above. Jack, welcome to the show. We appreciate your time as always. Cole and I were joking in the commercial break that it's a good thing baseball can't transfer in this transfer portal window. Otherwise, there will be no team left to finish the remainder of the season. Fast forward a couple of months as this season is coming to a close, or a couple of weeks as the season comes to a close. What is Paul Maneri's pitch going to be to try to keep some core of players on this team and in this locker room?
Let's try that again. Sorry, Jack. My apologies. Go ahead, buddy.
You're good. You're good. Can you guys hear me now?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah, so what I was saying was just, I think this last month, assuming this team doesn't make the postseason, which seems to be the case, I think this last month is so important in trying to figure out, okay, who are your key guys going to be that you want to bring back next year? Because there's only a few, there's some select guys, I would say right now, that you should definitely be bringing back. I think you have some pitchers that are relatively young that have shown enough this year to where you can bring them back. I think at the corners of your infield, the key cornerstones of your team moving forward are going to be KJ Scobie and Bo Hollins. But beyond that, I think there's a lot that you can it's not so much what does his pitch need to be. It's more so, I think, how is he going to, I guess, how do you kind of assess the roster and how do you move forward with getting, letting some guys go? You have to make some tough decisions. And, he's already done that in going back to the fall when he's had to cut a few players to narrow the roster down. I think you kind of have to weed out where the problems with this team are this year because, quite frankly, there's a lot. And then you have to really dive headfirst into the transfer portal again and into recruiting and try to reload and make this roster better from what it's been this year. But I don't think there's talent on this team. It's just it hasn't worked out this year to where everything is going according to plan.
It's really interesting, Jack, when you talk about this season, because, listen, South Carolina baseball fans year in and year out are going to want to expect to win, right? Regardless of who the coach is, regardless of how many years he's been there. Do you feel like, just from a big picture standpoint, maybe South Carolina fans are overreacting a little too much with Paul Maneri and the bad season the Gamecocks have had, and just in terms, Jack, of this being his first year and not really having the right players he wants on the roster?
Well, I do understand their frustration. Like, look, it's been a while since this team's been to Omaha, and they had to endure the few rough seasons that there were under Mark Kingston. And you bring in a guy like this, you're hoping that, okay, this is going to be the right hire. Ray Tanner is going to bring in a winner, and he's going to get it right. And then you overlook the fact that Maneri's 67 when he took the job and all that because he's a winner. And even I was on board with the hire at the time. Like, I'm fully like, all right, this is going to work out. It may not be a great year one, but down the road, I could see this working out to where he gets South Carolina to where they want to go. But, in this day and age where you could flip a roster in one off season and you can go from being really bad to really good in just a season span. I think people are upset with the fact that this team is so much worse than anyone really could have expected. And here's the thing with this program. It's not like they were terrible last year. But I think people are quick to forget for having a coach get fired last year. South Carolina did control their own destiny at one point to being a hosting site and being a top 16 seed in the NCAA tournament. It's just after they took a series against Florida, they got swept by Georgia and Tennessee, and that pretty much played them right into having to go on the road for a regional as a 2 seed. So you return a little bit of the roster. You brought in a lot of talented transfers and freshmen. Like, again, there is a lot of talent on this team. It is just, for whatever reason, it just has not come all together this year. Some of that, I think, has to do with coaching. Some of that has to do with the players and just the inconsistencies there with the pitching staff and whatnot. There's just a lot of problems, and I can see why people are very frustrated with wanting to let Paul go after a season. But how realistic is that anyway? Because, if we're talking about firing him at the end of the year, how are you going to pay the buyout, right? How are you going to pay the buyout for the rest of the coaching staff after, Monty Lee's the highest paid assistant coach in college baseball. So, money does not grow on trees. And so you kind of have to really think smartly about the situation before having just an outward reaction.
Yeah, Jack, I was just about to ask you, like, what is the strategy? What strategy do you think Paul Mainieri employs with his support staff going into next season? It would be easy to say, fire them all, start fresh. But when you've had as much instability as you've had, maybe stability, even if it's not the best piece even if every piece is not the guy that you would want to have in there, maybe having some stability there would be the right choice. So which way do you think they go? Keeping this staff pretty much intact or making some changes?
I think they keep the staff intact. And number one, again, you just, like I said, Monty Lee's your highest paid assistant coach at, I believe it's like $500,000 or $600,000 a year. And that may not sound like much. So maybe they can cut him loose if they feel like they need to. But honestly, I don't even think the offense is the problem for South Carolina. I think the pitching is more so the issue. But here's the thing with that. Him and Terry Rooney, the pitching coach, who's also the recruiting coordinator, they are very close. They've been together for such a long time now. They coached together at LSU for years, and they've known each other for a really long time. So they have a good relationship, obviously. And maybe if things don't start looking up with the pitching, Paul talks to Terry about like what they need to do next season and stuff. But I'm not sure if we really see them. I think here's the real thing. It's more so like if Paul's not here next year, then these coaches aren't going to be here next year. That's kind of how I look at it, because I think Paul probably will be back next year, but I just don't know, man. It's like, I think it's more so like, because I think he's a good staff. I think he has good players. It's just, again, you're taking over a program in year one. I don't think he or anyone, I think especially he didn't expect this league to be so tough compared to like when he was last in the SEC in 2021.
Jack, I'm going to ask you a crazy question to close the conversation with Paul Mainieri. Is there any chance in your mind that Mainieri just looks at everything that's happened and to your point just now about the SEC being so tough as it is, and just says, you know what, maybe I made a mistake of coming out of retirement, and maybe I'm going to go back to where life was a little bit easier? Any possibility? I know it's a crazy, far-fetched question, but any possibility in your mind of that happening?
I don't think anything's off the table, Cole. I think it's definitely something. It's like if the season doesn't start to turn around at any point the rest of the year, like if you finish the year with like 5-6 wins in the SEC, I mean, look, I remember Paul telling me when he first got hired and stuff, he was in Baton Rouge playing golf like 5 times a week. He's living out there with his family. Like, doesn't that sound nice? And he's only getting older at this point, right? Like by the time if he were to do the full contract, 5 years, which ends in 2029, he'll be in his 70s. And I just don't know if I don't know if he makes it the full contract, but like to be done after a year, it wouldn't shock me. But it's like, I think it's more so that's a decision that's going to have to come down to what Jeremiah Donati wants to do, because again, he's not the one who hired Paul. That was a Ray Tanner decision. So I just wonder how there's going to be some important conversations that are going to need to be had after the season ends. And I think I wrote about earlier this week, you got to figure out, if you're Donati, you got to figure out where Paul's head is at moving forward. Because if it's not 100% invested in getting this program back on track, which I think he's got his head in the right place, but I think if it's not fully invested, bought into getting this thing going, then I think maybe you make a move. I'm not sure.
At Jack T. Veltri on Twitter is where you can find his work, Veltri. We invite all of our Tolos to go find him and throw him a follow. Yeah. Yesterday, we spent a lot of time talking about the Atlanta Braves and how many games we thought they might win over the course of this season. So let's bring that conversation to the South Carolina Gamecocks and set the over-under at 500. Right now they're sitting at plus 500, but there's not enough midweek opponents to keep them above 500 unless they win some SEC series. So in your mind, where do they finish up in 2025?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, they will not finish over 500 if they don't win a couple of these SEC series. Like, you only have 3 more midweek games left to go after this. That is, with 21 wins right now, I mean, you will definitely finish below 500 if you can't start stacking some serious wins. That said, I do think there's opportunities to take series here, but I just haven't seen any reason to believe why they will. You know, like, they have Ole Miss coming into town this weekend. Ole Miss is a good team. You got Florida, Kentucky coming up. You haven't been able to win an SEC series yet. Your last series win came against Morehead State way back when in non-conference play. I just don't see any reason to believe that they can do it. I'd love to be proven wrong. So I do think they are going to finish under 500. And I mean, that'd be the second time since 2022 that they've done that. And that would be, talk about real low points. That's definitely one for the books in year one of this new era at South Carolina.
Jack, let's make this interview positive. Let's transition to positivity for the remainder of this interview. Is the South Carolina Gamecock spring game is Friday night, so just a couple of days away from today. Obviously, it being on a Friday is a change, a little bit different in terms of traditional spring games being played on Saturday, like the in-state rival had a couple of weeks ago. Have you, before we dive into the spring game, have you heard from Coach Beamer or anyone else what their reasoning was as to why they wanted to play their spring game on a Friday night?
Yeah, so that's something that has come up a few times now, and the way he's put it is that they're the only game on Friday that he says. So, you know, they're the main show in town, as he's put it, and more eyeballs are on them, even though in a literal sense, I mean, it's not going to be on TV or anything. So, you know, you're going to be able to have recruits there and stuff, and it does fall on Easter weekend too. So I think it's a lot easier sell to have the game on Friday. I know it's after work and stuff, so not everyone's going to be able to make it to the game. But,
they're like us.
Yeah, exactly. So I think having it on Friday makes sense from that standpoint of, you know, you're the only game going on, and Friday night under the lights, and you got Easter the next day, so people can still travel, I guess, if they want. So that's kind of how he's put it recently.
Jack, you know, we spent a lot of time the last couple of days talking about the situation with Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee. Just wondering how you think Shane Beamer would handle a similar situation. I understand that everything is comfy and cozy and good to go with Lenoris and his NIL situation. But, you know, if Shane were to be put into a position like that, what do you think would be his reaction?
Well, he actually was asked about that the other day. I'm looking for the quote on it here, but you know, he basically just said, like, you know, you gotta be honest with them. You gotta be transparent, be genuine, and, you know, treat the players the right way and be who they say they are. So, you know, when he saw that news about Nico, you know, he wasn't freaking out about it or anything and thinking like, oh my gosh, like, what do we have to do to make sure this doesn't happen to us? They just have to stick to who they are. And that's why I think why South Carolina does seemingly pretty well in recruiting and bringing players in, because it's not just about being a program on the rise. They also have that, you know, maybe cliche, but that family and welcoming environment that attracts a lot of kids and families. So I think for South Carolina, like, I don't think there's really anything to be too worried about. Like, I don't think Lenoris Sellers is going to get to a point where he's asking for an exorbitant amount of dollars. Like, yes, he's worth a lot, but his play also backs it up. With Nico, I just think the situation is just asking for way too much money for being mediocre. And, you know, that's why we haven't seen a school flock after him yet to where, okay, we're going to pay the, you know, money that you want, where I think it's kind of going to get to a point where he's going to have to decide, all right, maybe I take lesser value than what I initially thought I was worth right now.
Jack, what do you think the biggest storyline is when you talk about South Carolina's spring game, their spring practice concluding, what we'll see on Friday night from tweets from you and others? What do you think the biggest storyline is? And if there's more than one, that's okay too. But in terms of the hype, the conversation surrounding this football team heading into the final parts of spring.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you could go with this, but I think for me, and again, it's just a spring game, so I don't think we're going to see, like, you're not going to throw the kitchen sink out there, right? But I am excited to see how much – it's an overarching theme here – how these guys look that are replacing what you lost last year, because I think that cannot be understated. I know the expectations are high for South Carolina, but let's also keep in check that they are losing a lot, and specifically on this defense. So, look, what we see on Friday and what we've seen in practice is not a foregone conclusion that, oh my gosh, like, you know, if a guy has like a sack or something, it's not going to tell me like, oh man, like that's the guy that's going to, you know, lead this defense and replace, you know, this guy that they lost from last year. Like, there's still a lot of work to be done until we get to the season to where we can actually judge these guys in real competition. But I do want to see how the new guys look out there. And, you know, that's definitely a big storyline, is everything they lost. How are they replacing it? And we'll get an early idea of that on Friday night.
Yeah, and Jack, what do you think position-wise South Carolina will be targeting most in the transfer portal? A lot of the news coming out, you know, in the last couple of hours has really been surrounding this basketball portal commit who decided to decommit. Not a lot on the football side of things. It seems like Shane Beamer's doing a great job of holding that roster together right now.
I think some of the main positions that they're going to be going after, and they already have so far in the portal with the addition of Damon Clowney from Charlotte, I think edge is definitely one where you need a little bit more depth. That's a position that Beamer brought up recently in a press conference that they're a little bit low on right now. I think defensive tackle has got to be a huge priority. I think that's probably priority number one, if I'm being honest. And then also special teams. I mean, Beamer was asked at the end of his press conference yesterday, you know, Mason Love, I mean, could he be a guy that holds on to multiple roles like place kicking and punting and maybe even holding? That's a lot for a first-year starter to potentially do. And I think he's going to win the punting job, but I don't think it's that far-fetched to say he could also be the kicker of this team. But I think if you're Shane, and if there's a good enough kicker out there, maybe you go out there and get the guy and just see what he can do, because right now it just feels like Beamer would be okay with having Love be a guy that holds down multiple positions on special teams.
And then, Jack, before we let you go, your thoughts on this weekend series, what you think South Carolina Gamecock fans should expect against Ole Miss, who are coming off of a 7-3 loss to Little Rock on Tuesday. They have really good lineup, or really good hitters throughout the lineup. Rather, Hill has one of their best hitters, batting .367. Hunter Elliott, 5-1, 3.92 ERA, one of their best pitchers. So it's a very formidable Ole Miss team that South Carolina will be facing. What do you think the Gamecock fans should realistically expect?
It's going to be a tough series, man, but that's what every weekend series in the SEC is like. I think if you're the Gamecocks this weekend, the number one thing you need out of this weekend, because you cannot perform like this like you did against Texas A&M, pitching's got to be better. Last night against Citadel was a step in the right direction, shutting the Bulldogs out over 9 innings. But you get 40 runs in 3 games of SEC play. The walks and the free passes were such an issue to where you had more of those than strikeouts. So the command's got to be better. We'll see with, you know, Brandon Stone's back in the rotation tomorrow, Jake McCoy on Friday, and then Paul Maneri did say he hopes Dylan Eskew will start on Saturday. As long as those guys can set the tone early and then hopefully your bullpen doesn't implode, I think you got a chance to win a series this weekend, because your defense has been pretty good, and then your offense at times has been a little bit sluggish, but I think for the most part, I like what the group's been doing lately. So I think it's going to be a tough series for South Carolina to win, but it all starts with the pitching, and if you're not getting good outings from those guys, I just find it really tough to be able to see them win. But I do hope people show up to the ballpark, because I think it'll be a nice weekend for baseball.
Jack, you're the best, man. Always appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks,
Jack Veltri. Just awesome. Go give Jack a follow if you haven't already. Diesel told you to do so earlier. If you were obeying Diesel and did so, let him know you heard him. It's Jack T. Veltri. That's Veltri. Really good stuff. Jack is plugged in, to say the least, with South Carolina. Diesel, on the other side, if you have not heard, there was someone out there who was or is pretty darn famous who shouted out Greenville and a local team in a really awesome way. If you haven't heard that audio, we'll have it for you next. 415, 16, now 17, Diesel, watching the show on the stream. That's right. You can watch Wire to Wire. Did you know that, Diesel? Did you know?
We're right here.
We're right,
you and me
right
every
here.
day.
So not only can you listen to the show, you can watch with the other 415 that are watching right now on the stream, a lot of those through Twitter. We're also on Facebook and YouTube. Diesel, have you heard John Gruden yet with the Swamp Rabbits?
I have not.
This is fantastic stuff.
This
is stuff. So it starts with them sending John Gruden some shirts, hats, apparel. Here's how it all started a couple of days ago.
This might be the most mysterious box of all boxes. It's from the Greenville Swamp Rabbits. It's a hockey team. Think about that. A swamp rabbit. I've been looking up swamp rabbits. I'm using my new cutwater knife. I've got so many knives, I don't know what to do with them.
This is one big long commercial.
It's one long commercial. I'm going to fast forward.
You know what a swamp rabbit is? It's a smaller-eared swamp rabbit. They have orange legs, hind legs. I looked it up. And the mascot carries a hockey stick that's a carrot. That's no shit. That's a real swamp rabbit.
Thanks, John.
Let me dump that out.
Cursing, John.
You got to know a Barstool. So here is the one from yesterday.
You know, a lot of people criticize me because they don't think I know much about hockey. Well, they might be right, but I'm learning. And I'm 1-0 as a fan of the Swamp Rabbits. I've been following the Rabbits, and they just won their final home game on Sunday. They beat the South Carolina Stingrays, and they ended a 17-game losing streak to the Stingrays. And I'd like to just thank, and I'd like to give out a game puck to Jack Brackett. 2 goals in a 2-1 victory. Jack Brackett, you should get a gold jacket. The game winner with 2:33 left sent South Carolina home. Like to thank Scholl, too. Scholl, for you people that don't think I know hockey. 41 saves. You talk about some twitchy, clutch playmaking in the net. I'm learning, and I'm going to keep learning. And you better watch out, hockey fans, because Gruden just became one.
How about that? John Gruden shouting out Greenville. Us, right here.
What's the hockey version of his favorite, like, XYZ shift banana?
Yeah, really.
That play call. What's the hockey version of that? We need John Gruden breaking down hockey.
How cool is that, though, man? John Gruden, who is just fantastic, in my opinion, at what he does. I love watching his shows with quarterback camps, Barstool now. He does a lot with them. And Diesel, him shouting out putting Greenville on the map. How about that, man?
Love to see it. I mean, this is what was one big long commercial. Hey, here's my Cutwater knife. Right. Make sure you go drink Cutwater. Yeah. And here's the thing from this box comes from Amazon. Buy your stuff from Amazon. And it's got Swamp Rabbit. Oh, it's got Scotch tape on it. I love my friends over at Scotch Tape. You need to stick something. Do it with Scotch tape. I'm John Gruden.
He just has the best personality, doesn't he? Like his voice inflection, the way that I don't know. I love me some John Gruden.
Yeah, and by the way, suck it, Charleston, with the Stingrays.
That's right. That's right. So, look, Greenville getting on the map due to John Gruden, due to Barstool. That was through who that video was through that you just heard. So, the Swamp Rabbits, now that the regular season is over, getting a little love. Always love to see it.
Ned on Facebook says, how about Limestone? Well, we are gutted for our friends over there at Limestone. And the news coming out about shutting the university down. Not just a program, not just a department, the entire university. That's just awful
and real
to hear
quick,
that happening.
On that, before we run, Ned, going to be joined by Brock Kamerick of the Cherokee Chronicle, who is at Limestone right now getting an interview with the president at some point in the 4 o'clock hour. We don't know when, but he's going to text me, and we'll have a little bit more. It's sad. It really is. Ned said he just graduated last year, so sad. That's tough. Man.
Just in time, Ned. When we come back, the transfer portal is not even, they didn't crack the door open. They blew this thing wide open, and players from all over the country are rushing to jump into that swimming pool. Who's been gutted the most, and who are the most talented prospects out there available on the market? That is next. The Wire to Wire Portal Tracker next on the Fan Upstate. You said the words in the stream, Cole, pack your bags. And that is what a lot of players are doing today. In the very first day that players can officially enter their name into the college football transfer portal. As of this moment, this is available information on on3.com. 3,237 players have entered their names into the transfer portal.
Yeah.
As of this, 3,273. I'd have to do the math here. Like how many Division 1 and 2? I don't know how deep this goes. Programs are there? Like, what's the average number of players any coach is losing off of its roster? Like, I've been watching this news come out about my team.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, this player, who? I don't know who any of these guys are. Like, I used to care about the roster. I used to know the guys that were on the roster.
Now
I used
you don't.
to follow them year to year to year and love to see their improvement. By the time they became seniors, juniors, and seniors and became starters on this team, now I don't.
Now you don't.
Oh, so-and-so left. Yeah, literally never heard that name before.
Isn't that bad? Isn't that sad?
It is.
That we're there. Like, think about what you just said. Think about it. Think about it.
Yeah.
What you just, that's where we are now.
And I'm the one, people thought I was weird because I brought it up on the station before. People thought I was weird when I said I had a Twitter list of players that played at App State because I want to follow along with them after they graduate. Sure. Right? I want to know what's going on. I want to know what they put on social media, and I love to be able to keep up with that kind of stuff. But I don't think I've added a new name to that list in a long time.
You have to be really dedicated.
Yeah.
I want to know.
I go and take guys off the list. Not that they care.
Yeah.
Right. Not that they care, but I do take them off the list. If you leave us, you're gone. I don't care about you anymore.
Diesel, I want to know though, what would it look like if we had the portal? What would it look like if we had an NIL as radio show host? What if we had the portal?
We do get a paycheck. That's our NIL.
Oh, is it? Wait. We get a paycheck?
You're not getting paid for this?
We get a paycheck?
Concert tickets?
We need some NIL. I mean, we do get paychecks, if you want to call it that, but we do need NIL. We do need the portal. Imagine what it would be like in the workforce if the same, crap that was happening in college football, it's ridiculous. Yeah,
employers wouldn't know on Wednesday morning who is actually working for them.
What's your name?
Yeah, exactly. As of right now, Cole, 1,769, 55% of the names who entered the transfer portal. This is what's so wild to me, right? Mm-hmm. This thing just opened this morning, and out of the 3,200 people, players that entered the portal, 1,700, roughly 55% of them are already committed somewhere. So tell me how that makes sense. I mean, I'm impressed.
Oh my God.
I'm impressed at the talent evaluation system of every college football program in America.
Yeah.
If they can evaluate 1,700 players in a matter of hours and decide, you know what? I like you. You make the phone calls, you get them to commit. That's massively impressive how they're able to do it so fast.
And there's so much going on. Who do we have on yesterday? Was it Mark Hodge, I believe, who was talking about as a coach now there are so many different things to keep up with.
Yeah.
It hurts my head just to think about like how a Dabo Swinney, how a Shane Beamer, how anybody at a Power 4 school, Diesel.
Yeah.
Does all of it. It's not just coaching football anymore.
In a weird way, I think as a coach, you have to stop caring who's on your roster, right? I mean, you can't. That's like your kid saying, "Hey, Dad, I don't want you to be my dad anymore. I'm leaving. I'm going somewhere else."
Yeah,
right. I mean, that would gut me if I was a coach. I don't see how they do it. But one little additional interesting stat here is that 108 guys have withdrawn their name from the transfer portal. So about 4% of players who entered the portal so far today have already pulled their names out. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on in this segment, Cole, but there are a handful of interesting prospects who are out there who are available. I mean, the transfer portal is littered with 3 stars. It's littered with a bunch of dudes who are just okay.
You don't say.
Yeah, there's
Shocker, right?
There's some 4-star guys out there. Nobody's gotten their transfer rating yet. We're still looking at their high school ratings, but there's a couple of 4-star guys out there available. There's running back Alton McCaskill from Arizona State. He's entered the transfer portal, and all this is brand new. Ask me again in 5 minutes, and I'll give you 30 new names. Cornerback Roderick Pleasant from Oregon has entered the transfer portal. He was a 4-star guy coming out of high school. Zach Rice, 5-star offensive tackle from North Carolina. He says, sorry, Bill, not interested in you and your coaching services. Maybe Zach had to go talk to his girlfriend, to Bill's girlfriend, before he could talk to Bill. And I don't know how this is playing out. Malik Hamrick, also from North Carolina, linebacker, 4-star guy. He has entered the transfer portal. This list is just constant.
But I think
right?
what
Constant
you said,
churn.
though, a minute ago is the theme. Like what you said a minute ago needs to be the headline on the portal page on ESPN's website. What I'm referring to is they're all 3-stars. Not saying they're not good players, but this is where we are, that all these players in the portal, but how many of them are –
they're depth guys. It's the depth guys.
And you need depth.
You need depth,
you need it.
right? And we've heard that from coaches all along since the portal really ramped up. They said, you keep most of your 4- and 5-star guys. Maybe not if you're a quarterback out of the 2023 class, but you keep most of your 4- and 5-star guys. It's the 3-stars who think they're better than they are, wanting to go somewhere else, wanting to get playing time, wanting to get developed, wanting to get out on the field. And in some ways you can sort of understand it, but at the same time, like if you're a 3-star and you're riding the bench at Florida State, do you really think you're going to go be a star at NC State? Probably not.
I don't have the numbers, but I would be willing to bet that's 25% of college football. Am I way off there in terms of the thousands? Does that not have to be close? Okay, maybe let's be a little bit more
a vast majority, right? A
15,
vast majority of 3-stars. 15.
I'm just saying, like in terms of the entire sport, though, that are in the portal. Are we comfortable saying 15% of? And we'll do the math during the break or later on. Are we comfortable saying 15%, 20% of the entire country? Because the reason I ask is, I know there's more football players than basketball players, but women's basketball, more than 1,400 women's basketball players have entered the portal. That is 28% of the entire nation. Mm-hmm. Think about that. 28% as of this very moment. 28% of all D1 women's college basketball players in the portal. That's crazy.
There is some conversation surrounding Clemson and the running back position, especially in the transfer portal. Clemson did lose one running back, but they are apparently hot on the heels of, now former Georgia running back Branson Robinson. So, Clemson apparently has never taken a transfer from transfer from the spring portal. Could this be the year that they add to that? They've never done it before. Depth at the running back position is an issue for Clemson. Could this be the year they add a portal guy?
Was it last year, Diesel, when Shane Beamer was telling us, or it might have been Dabo. It might have been Dabo at the media session they do in August. It was one of the two coaches that told us in some interview that April 16th, they're not really, like if they're having to go, I think it was Beamer, that if they're having to go look for guys right now, they've got bigger issues. Right. And I swear it might've been at that Gamecock Club meeting that we had.
I do remember this.
And he said, look, you can get a guy here, get a guy there. You can lose a guy here in this spring portal window. But if you're concerned about portal players right now, what are your real concerns in terms of where your program is? That needs to be said, because the good programs, they're not panicking right now. I mean, I don't think they are. I don't think they're hitting the panic button in terms of having their players leave. And in Clemson South, you mentioned it would be the first one ever for Clemson.
It's
interesting.
I mean, they just took their first portal guy this year in totality. So first incoming portal guy. They did lose cornerback Tavoy Fagan, who is leaving Clemson and is now committed to Ole Miss. So the cornerback room may be getting a little bit thinner there, but I was asking Jack Veltri about any transfer portal news and nuggets that he might be able to drop for us. And there's really not a lot out of the South Carolina program. And I think that does speak really highly to Shane Beamer and his ability to keep players, to promise them, to deliver on everything they promise them. Sure. And more often than not, if you deliver on your promises, if you do what you say you're going to do, if you give them what you say you're going to give them, you're going to keep a lot of these guys. Just be honest with them. And, that's a hallmark, I guess, of both what Clemson and South Carolina have done, because neither one of these programs lose a lot of guys in the portal.
No, you're right. They don't. I want to say this, though. Is the portal window open today? Here's where my mind goes, Diesel. And when Dabo, and it's not just Dabo now, there are other coaches that are preaching these same messages and values. But I remember back, even before Clemson went on their run, Dabo preached and was so big on culture, right? And people made fun of him for it. It was the all-in culture that Dabo had and Dabo created, and he became a laughingstock because he created that culture, and there were not really any wins to back it up. And then he goes and wins 2 national championships and plays in 3, Diesel, and all of a sudden there's some substance, right? There's some meat. I think Dabo Swinney, for as much as criticism as he gets, I think the Dabos and the Nick Sabans of the world were so far ahead of the game in terms of knowing what's coming, because they understood that if you have that strong culture in place, you're going to take less turbulence. And I think Shane Beamer, I think he has a really strong culture in place right now. And that holds a lot of weight when you're talking about not taking as much impact from the portal, from the spring window, you have to have that strong culture in place. Culture
insulates you from all of the chaos outside. It doesn't mean you're going to be untouched.
No, it doesn't.
It can helps. Just insulate you. It's like that. It's like that line from Pulp Fiction. Just because you have character, or just because you are a character, doesn't mean you have character. And it begs you the question: how are guys like Mike Norvell doing in the transfer portal? Culture has been a little shaky down there in Tallahassee. That's what they have thrived on, is getting guys out of the transfer portal. I mean, think about it. You got a bunch of kids who are signing on the dotted line and now can't practice for a while. We're in another dead period for a while. And, they won't get to see and meet their teammates and start building any kind of cohesiveness for a couple of weeks.
It's tough. Yeah. It's tough. And again, back last year, I remember when Beamer also told us that May is really when, and it's interesting that these spring games happen when they do. Beamer also told us May is when I really know as a coach, this is what my team's going to look like heading into the summer, heading into the fall. As of right now, obviously he, for the most part, has his guys, but he really doesn't know. What was it? Did somebody just?
There's an idiot in the hallway screaming as if people aren't on the radio.
I don't know what that was. That was random. Welcome to live radio, Tolos out there. Scotty from BMW says, "Are we now seeing the things that happen behind the scenes with players and schools? NIL being played out in the public because of NIL." Scotty, I think I understand your text in terms of this stuff already happening. Is that what you're asking? If so, yeah, I mean, Diesel and I have talked about that. We all know that before NIL existed, things were happening under the table. Nobody's naive to that. But in terms of it all being out in the public now, I think what NIL has done is just amplified it, right? It's made it. And again, when you open that water hose, Diesel, and you turn that faucet on and you don't have the kink in it, right? You know how in your backyard you turn it on, you don't have the kink in it. It all comes out flowing at one time. You don't have the sprayer on with your 8 different settings of the jet versus the shower. If you don't have that on, it's going to all come out at one time. And I think that's exactly what happened. There were no kinks. There were no faucets. There were no things set in place to avoid it becoming the Wild Wild West. So yeah, to your point a little bit, this is a part of not having parameters in place, I guess.
I just hit the refresh button, and 9 more players have entered the transfer portal since this segment started. 9 in the last 14 minutes have made it official and have been picked up by On3. I just question, Cole, out of the 3.5% who say, you know what, maybe this wasn't the right decision for me. I'd like to go back to my school. As a policy, I don't think they should let them back in. Shut the doors on them, lock the doors on them on their way out.
I think some coaches probably
they will.
They will.
I think that's a bad thing for the locker room, though. If your star linebacker enters the portal, and then, test the water. And I'm talking like if you're a G5 star linebacker, right? You're in North Texas and you enter the transfer portal and nobody from the Power 5 wants you. What do? Do you go back with your tail tucked between your legs, or now do you try to, get on with another program just so you can play this year and jump back in the portal again next year?
Yeah, it's so fascinating to look at the portal and the guys that are in it. And you just mentioned in the 15 minutes we've been talking 9 new players in the portal. I would love to know, and I don't know that we'll ever get this deep of a dive into this information. But I'll tell you what comes to mind for me when you talk about the portal and how many now total? 2,000? What was it? 3,000?
The number at the moment is 3,238.
What's the motive? That's what I think's important. Like if this is not talked about, but if you're a coach, Diesel, and you have a player incoming, right? An incoming player into your program. Let's say Clemson's Dabo Swinney. If there is a player that, and this is probably a reason Dabo has been hesitant with the portal, but if you have a player coming in or interested in coming in as a coach, you have to know what the motive of that player is, because the motive of that player that has entered the transfer portal. So people don't realize this is not talked about from everyday fans because they care about X's and O's, but whatever that player's motive is, when you let it into your locker room, when you let it into your culture, now all of a sudden you're talking about potentially bringing a cancerous guy in, bringing a guy like Nico in. So, again, it goes back to my point. I feel sorry, and I know JD said it. These coaches have GMs now, and I get it, but it is a tough job to not only have to recruit your own roster, but to vet. You know, when you get hired, you're vetted. Imagine having to vet all of these players, what their motive is. Why are you in the portal? That's huge to me. We'll never find out. But they should have to list a reason. When they enter the portal, I want to start getting ESPN, all these players, when you enter the portal, you have to list your reasons. Yeah. I want to see why.
I mean, look, we take annual employee surveys, and if the answer is, I want more playing time, I want more money, I didn't see eye to eye with my coach on things, my coach left, something like that, they should have to pick and choose from a list of like 5 to 10 reasons. I know. They got to give a real reason, because I don't want a guy coming into my locker room via the transfer portal who 6-8 months from now is going to be trying to recruit guys on my roster to also enter the transfer portal next year.
It's
guys,
insane.
I was in the portal. It worked for me. I jumped from Georgia Southern to Clemson. The portal worked for me. Yeah. We should all jump back in the portal again. So next year we can all go to Alabama.
Yeah, it's true. Kane on the YouTube stream says more than likely it's a bad motive. The OG Tolo JB says, I guess all of the athletes at Limestone will have to go in the transfer portal. JB, they're already, I mean, if you have Twitter and you have seen anything on Twitter in the last hour, every Limestone, I don't want to say every, there's a good amount of Limestone players, especially football, who have already made that announcement that they are in the portal. I locally, I know that Lane Fowler, a good friend of the show, who I had on a couple of weeks ago, Diesel, when you were out, his son was at Saginaw State up north playing basketball, just transferred back home to attend Limestone. So there's a lot of players in that same boat that, their recruitment is back open, I guess you say.
See, what I don't like about all of this portal tracking is that the portal just opened and 55% of them are already committed somewhere, which means they already knew where they were going to go
100%.
Before they entered the transfer portal. I don't think anybody should be allowed to commit for, 5 days. 5 days, you cannot commit. Now, they may be behind the scenes already committed somewhere, right? Yeah. They may already think, hey, I'm going to go from Oregon to Auburn, but they shouldn't be allowed to publicly release that information yet. Number one, it would make for great, compelling sports talk for us.
It would.
Look at all these guys. Where are they going to go? Who is Clemson going to be able to grab? Who is South Carolina going to be able to grab, et cetera? And then essentially have that second reveal like they have when they pick where they're going to go to college the first time out of high school. I think that's what we need to have them not commit. And you get an opportunity for other schools to make pitches to them. And it may be something like when you were taking colleges up there at taking classes at North Greenville, you would go online and you would register for your classes.
Yeah.
So these players should have an online registry system to say, all right, such and such school is offering this, such and such school is offering that. And then you get to pick and choose from all your offers, and it's public also.
502 now watching on the stream where you can watch the show live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. A little curveball, Diesel. Brock Hamrick of the Cherokee Chronicle, good friend of the show. He's going to join us. He's wrapping up an interview now with the president at Limestone. So he's going to join us a little bit later in the 4 o'clock hour. So let's get to this Ryan Clark audio in the next segment that you have. I have not heard it yet. Fair warning. So I don't know if I'm going to like it or not. But I guess we'll have to wait and decide.
It's going to upset you.
Is it?
Tolos? Well, you, Cole, definitely. Tolos, absolutely. Ryan Clark of ESPN throwing some massive shade at you, at me, at all of us. Next. Ryan Clark, longtime ESPN pundit Cole, is taking shots at us, you and me, saying that all this business going on with Nico Iamalieva, Nico, I'm going to leave you. It has nothing to do with us.
You better not be taking shots at me.
Has nothing to do with us. Right. You can find the full clip. He was on Mike Greenberg's show on ESPN. This is a quick excerpt of what Ryan Clark had to say about this Nico situation.
What'd you make of the whole thing? I mean, the first thing is, Paul, bump the fans. Like, the fans don't matter. They just don't. This is about those young men, and this is about those football teams. I think it goes back to what Heather said, the failure of leadership of the NCAA and former president Mark Emmert. They could have been on the right side of history.
I don't know if I've ever heard somebody who has spent their entire life in a service industry that is designed to get people to come and pay attention to you, take the fans and the viewers this for granted.
I've never liked them.
Screw the fans. It's not about you. It's about us.
Oh, my God. I've never liked Ryan Clark. It's just always making it about something else, and it's not. And that's awful. I mean, what would he do without fans that watch ESPN?
Yeah.
I mean, those saying
who does Ryan Clark think watches these games?
God.
Would these players be out there doing what they do, putting their bodies on the line for money, if nobody was watching?
Hit that one more time, if you don't mind.
Okay,
because I want to hear. I want to make sure I'm hearing this right.
There's two distinct parts of this. In the second half, I actually agree with Ryan Clark. But the first half, screw you, Ryan.
What'd you make of the whole thing? I mean, the first thing is, Paul, bump the fans. Like, the fans don't matter. They just don't. This is about those young men, and this is about those football teams. I think it goes back to.
So, bump the fans.
What?
This is about those young men. I mean, sports are lucrative because of the fans. The fans are the audience. They are the people who watch and then are attractive for advertisers. If there's no fans, Cole, there's no more Budweiser. There's no more Kraft mac and cheese. There's no Longhorn Steakhouse, Pepsi, Coke. They all walk. All of this money that is generated doesn't just come out of thin air. It's by the fans spending money on tickets, concessions, merchandise, season passes, PSLs, whatever. And it's generated by the advertisers who want to access those fans and advertise to those fans.
You know, the reality of it is we always hear, and I'm not saying I disagree with this theory, but we always hear, Diesel, players should get paid because the players are the ones that are putting the product on the field. And I do agree with that the players should be compensated because they're the ones that are providing the services. Now, I don't think they should be above the fans or above the sport or being paid as much as they are. However, to your point, while the players provide the services, the fans are the ones footing the bill. Yeah. The fans are the ones that are buying the gear, buying the tickets, watching on TV. What do the fans do? The fans watch ESPN. They watch CBS, and those are the ones that are carrying the games because of the ratings. They have the revenue, and because of the revenue, they can carry the games. That Ryan Clark would probably have a stupid response. Oh, I didn't mean it like that. You know, the players have to do what's best for them. I just find that kind of silly. The whole comment I find silly.
And who is it that actually puts money into NIL collectives to pay the players? It's the fans.
Yeah.
The fans do it. So, yeah, it could be Dan B, who's a hardcore Georgia fan. I don't know if Dan B's a Georgia fan.
Wisconsin.
Well, yeah, he's a hardcore fan. So he says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put $2,500 into that Wisconsin NIL collective. I'm going to help them go out and get the players they need to win because it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
It makes me feel good if my team is good. I get to put on my Wisconsin shirt and puff my chest out. And I can say I had a part in that because I put my $2,500 in there. Well, what about the rich donors? They only donate because they're fans, right? They're alumni. They're people connected with the schools. They give money because they have more of it to give, and maybe it helps that I don't know if it's a tax write-off or anything like that, but they give money to an individual program because they're fans of that program. It's not like they're gambling on a massive scale, and I'm shocked we haven't seen that maybe that's the next big domino to fall, Cole. I know you're not a movie guy, but there was a funny movie that came out in the probably late 90s, early 2000s called Rat Race. And it's a movie about a bunch of really rich gamblers who get bored with going to the casino. And so what do? They want to start gambling on real life.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that we haven't seen, a couple of high roller gamblers, and this may be happening behind the scenes and we don't know about it, say, you know what we're going to do? I'm going to bet you that I could turn Duke into a powerhouse program. I'm going to put $20 million into a collective for Duke and see if I can't turn Duke into a playoff caliber team. Or maybe not Duke, maybe it's Auburn, maybe it's Wisconsin, maybe it's UCLA, right? I'm surprised that we haven't seen that. But until we find out that that's happening, what we know is that it's the fans who put money into the collectives. So the money goes from fans to collectives to players. So when Ryan Clark says, bump the fans, screw the fans, it's not about the fans. If you've ever given money to an NIL collective, or if you're actively giving money to an NIL collective, take it out. Take it out right now because they don't need you.
No, they don't.
They don't need your money. They don't need your participation. They don't need your interest. They don't need you.
I've never liked Ryan Clark one bit. Like ever. Never liked him. So again, anything he says, man, I really don't know how people – I actually don't know if anybody ever agrees with anything he says, to be quite frank.
I want to see a star player state this publicly on an open mic. If this is how players feel about fans, screw you. I know you're the one paying my salary, but screw you. They would see how fast the fans turn on them.
JD on the YouTube stream says this has everything to do with the fans, as that is where most of the NIL comes from. The OG Tolo JB says it does matter. A kid gets a free ride and then is given a $6 million NIL deal. That's not enough. Give me more. Kane says at least he's honest. Fans didn't appreciate I'm going to leave you and didn't give more donations for him to stay. DB says, well, Ryan can go kick rocks. F that guy. I agree with you on that, DB. The OG Tolo JB. It's not about the fans. Guess what, Ryan? If the fans don't show up and buy the tickets and pay the money to the Gamecock Club or IPTAY, those fellows don't get their cushy NIL deal. I'm with you there. Madcraft. Wow, is that our first Madcraft appearance today? Welcome, Mad. Maybe if I missed you, I'm sorry. I do apologize. I think it's his first one. He says, yeah, I said the kids shouldn't get paid, and the rest of America says they need it. Y'all dug this hole, live in it.
Well, the problem is people suddenly decided one day that the compensation they do receive or did receive prior to NIL, even though it's not a cash valuation, they decided that it was valueless. You're talking about 4 years of a quality education, which costs you and me, if we're going to school, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year to go somewhere. Yeah. They're getting that for free. They're getting a place to stay for free. They're getting food for free. They're getting medical attention for free. They're getting all of these things for free. All things that they suddenly decided are valueless because it's not cash. It's not money in hand. Now, what Ryan Clark said in the second half of this, I actually do agree with. And there is truth in what he's saying in the second half of this clip.
Football teams, I think it goes back to what Heather said, the failure of leadership of the NCAA and former president Mark Emmert. They could have been on the right side of history.
No issues with that whatsoever.
Yeah,
no true. Issues with that whatsoever. The NCAA's rigidity on the amateurism model and failure to adapt as they could see this coming down the pipe for years, that's 100% on them.
Yeah,
that's 100% on them.
I think they saw, to his point there, I think the NCAA, I think certain people saw the amateur model and thought that it could still work and be okay as is with allowing players to get paid. yes, they were walking in territory that's never been walked in before. I get that. We have never had an IL before in the public space when it comes to college football, so I do get that. But you've got to be smarter. You've got to understand that there's got to be ways to govern what happens, and they didn't do that. So absolutely tragic on that. But, again, Ryan Clark, still an idiot.
I do like that his co-host or whoever was on with him at the time, I know it was Greeny and I know Paul Feinbaum was on this particular clip.
Yeah.
They let him dig his own grave, right?
Sure.
They said, here you go, Ryan, here's a shovel. Tell us more.
We're going to be joined by Brock Hamrick in the very next segment. Brock writes for the Cherokee Chronicle, and he was with the president just a few moments ago at Limestone University. And if you just tuned in and did not hear the news, Limestone on the verge of closing its doors unless they can raise about $6 million within like 2 days. So things not looking up as Limestone looks to close its doors. Brock Hamrick will join us live from Gaffney in Cherokee County next. Well, we talked about it a little earlier in the show. It's all over social media now on our Twitter and Facebook and circling the interweb, if you will. Just sad news out of Cherokee County today as Limestone University is pretty much put the brakes on everything that's happening, and their future is in major question. Looks like they could be closing the doors very, very soon unless something dramatic changed. We are joined by Brock Hamrick of the Cherokee Chronicle, who was just meeting with the president at Limestone University, doing an interview a few minutes ago. Brock, I would imagine a very somber day on campus. Is that right?
Certainly so, Cole, and I appreciate you guys having me on. I've told many people this, but this is truly a sad day in Cherokee County. I've been working in newspaper for about 8 years and Radio 10, and this was undoubtedly the most difficult interview I ever had to do. Dr. Copeland, president of Limestone, was quite frank and just admitted that it had come to a point where the university is in desperate need of financial support to keep its doors open. And pending a decision coming up next Tuesday by the Board of Trustees, Limestone will either close its doors permanently or will close its doors and exist in an online capacity only.
Brock, thanks for joining the show here. It's Diesel. How long in the making do you get a sense that this decision and this budgetary downfall or budgetary shortcoming has been? I mean, has this been something they've known about for a couple of years? Did any kind of recent, economic changes or anything like that cause this to accelerate?
Well, it was about 4 or 5 years ago now, but some decisions made by previous administration that are no longer at Limestone put the college in a very, very difficult situation financially. But for a time there weren't a lot of rumblings, and we kind of just assumed that they had righted the ship. But it seems apparent that they never fully recovered from just a matter of overspending, it seemed. And them being a private institution, it's very hard to glean too much knowledge as far as their financials go, because Freedom of Information Act and that kind of stuff does not apply to a private institution. But from the outside looking in, the decisions made by a previous president at Limestone certainly put them in a situation where they were going to be playing from behind the 8 ball in an already changing four-year college landscape. And it's just not as ideal for students and families anymore, making it that much more difficult.
Brock, I don't know if you've seen on Twitter already, but a lot of Limestone students and a couple of coordinators, I believe the quarterback's coach as well, has already put a lot of stuff out there in terms of the school closing its doors and entering the transfer portal. From your interview with Dr. Copeland, what does this do for athletics? I mean, it's a lot. Limestone has a lot of different sporting programs that have been very, very successful over the years.
They certainly have, Cole. We're talking about a Limestone lacrosse program that has won 5 NCAA Division II national championships in the past 2.5 decades.
Wow.
The golf program back in the 80s won the NAIA national championship. Women's basketball team has competed in the NCAA Division II tournament multiple times. But, Cole, you're right. There are a lot of students on campus at Limestone, and it's predominantly their student body. They are student athletes. But from my understanding, those athletic teams and programs will cease, barring any unforeseen donation coming in the next couple of days. But those programs will be no more. From what I understand, a lot of the players, this did not come from the president, but from what I've gleaned is many of the players on the sporting teams were told to enter the transfer portal immediately. And I think that is their only option at this point. We're talking about over 1,000 on-campus students at Limestone University, and also over 300 staff and faculty members. That includes coaches and also just school staff as well.
Brock, are there any services that Limestone is going to be able to offer both to student athletes and to just regular students as well to help them find other opportunities, even if it's not going on to another athletic program, just to get them enrolled somewhere else?
To be honest, Dr. Copeland didn't explicitly give that information to me this afternoon, but in one of the addresses that he gave to the student body, he let them know that that Limestone would be there to support the students in their transition, and also that the college has reached out to the NCAA for some advice and guidance as these days and weeks come, because you're right. These student athletes, even if they don't continue to play athletics, they're going to have to find somewhere to continue their education. And I feel sure with the care that Limestone and their staff has for the students that they will certainly try to meet those needs as much as possible. Just to put it in perspective, Dr. Copeland shared this with me just to kind of show you how Limestone faculty is. They were told at 2:00 today of the likely closure upcoming for their, losing their job at Limestone. But yet they put aside their grief and their heartache learning that news to go support the students at 2:30 and be with them when those students learn the official news. So that just puts in perspective what the staff means to the student body and also means to the community down at Limestone.
Brock, I was talking to a player, and again, I don't know if Dr. Copeland touched on this, but I was talking to a football player at Limestone before we went on the air, and he said that meeting at 2:30 with the players and the faculty, he said it was very tough. I mean, there was a lot of tears shed in that meeting. Did he speak on that directly?
Certainly so. He said it was a very emotional day, a very tough day, and he kind of leveled with me and just said, it's certainly hard on Dr. Copeland personally, just because he's the one that had to kind of, point out, say, hey, guys, I just don't think this is going to work at the trajectory that we're going at. And trust me, he assured me that extensive efforts were made to try to shore things up financially at the university. And he said the past 10 months, the staff has went above and beyond to try to make it happen. But at the end of the day, the cards would not fall in place.
Brock, I find it hard to believe that there aren't, insurance policies, some sort of backup. I mean, I understand this is kind of what endowments for universities are for, a nest egg for rainy days to back them up. I mean, I assume now at this point they've exhausted basically every financial backup they have to stay afloat, but did they sort of burn through those resources in the previous years trying to keep this thing open?
Well, I think and I can't explicitly say this because I haven't seen the books, but I think what happened is there was times where the college dipped into that endowment under previous administrations. And so when it was time to turn to that endowment to help keep you afloat, it was not quite there. And that's also the money that colleges and universities use to give their students scholarships, whether it be an in-house scholarship or one that's created by the college. So I think that's the position they got in the last 10 months that has kind of been dire straits. And it's come to this point now where Dr. Copeland said it was time to be upfront with the students and let them know that this vote will be taking place to decide the future of this university.
Brock, downtown where Limestone, or just off of downtown where Limestone is located, you and I were talking about it earlier. It kind of is downtown, right? It kind of is the heartbeat of Gaffney. What does this do to the community of Gaffney and Cherokee County?
It's crippling. It's a gut punch. We joke about it, but it's really true when we say that when class is in at Limestone, the population of the city of Gaffney goes up by 10%. But it's true. When you go into Walmart in the fall, when the fall semester is about to start and the shelves are bare because all the college students have been there buying everything they need to get ready to move in, those shelves are going to be stocked now. When you go downtown and see the college students walking and riding downtown or checking out some of the shops, that'll be no more. This will be crippling. I told someone today, April 16th, 2025? Write it down because this is a sad day in Cherokee County and one that we will not soon forget.
So Brock, I mean, what other options are there now at this point to try to get funding? Are they essentially searching for a miracle donor to come in at the last hour and save them? And we were joking in the stream that this kind of feels like the plot to a 2000s movie where they've got to go do a bake sale or win a dodgeball tournament to keep the doors open.
Well, they are actively still searching and reaching out to donors and new donors as well. But I think the ideal situation would be that someone steps up and says, hey, either myself and some others are willing to step in and help. And I think the college is in a position now, from the way Dr. Copeland spoke, is if they could get through this and get to September, they will be in a much better situation with their operating plans and what they anticipate the next semester to look like. I mean, they're talking their anticipated attendance as far as non-athletic or non-student athlete students. So freshmen incoming, it was going to be up over 30% compared to last year. So things were starting to trend. It just seems they've come up against the wall.
And when you talk about the probability, Brock, and the likelihood of that happening, $6 million being brought together in a couple of days, I'm sure that the writing is on the wall enough. I mean, if your athletics are gone, if everybody's in the portal, you have no university. And did Dr. Copeland speak on that in terms of, yeah, there's still a chance, but it doesn't look good?
Well, he admitted that it did not look good, and that's why they shared with the college, the students and the staff today like they did, is because they know that it's a grim outlook. We're running up against the deadline, and the clock is ticking. If it does not come through by next Tuesday, pretty much it seems the board is going to make one of those two decisions, both of which, however, will have a huge impact on Cherokee County. To put it in perspective, Limestone University has over a $150 million annual economic impact in Cherokee County. That will be gone.
Say that number again, those numbers.
It is estimated $150 million annually of economic impact, including the students living here, eating here, shopping here, the sporting events that Limestone hosts, the tourism it attracts and opposing teams and their parents. It will be a significant blow.
Wow. Definitely is. Just horrible news, Brock. We appreciate you and your time. Great insight. And it is truly a sad day for Cherokee County.
I appreciate you guys, and much prayers for Limestone University. And guys, you never know. Someone may come in at the last hour, but at this point, it's not looking good.
Really tough stuff.
Thank you, Brock.
Really tough stuff. Brock Kamrick of the Cherokee Chronicle joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. Let's brighten the mood in the very next segment, because this is some good stuff. I don't know how these two were allowed on the same platform together, but Lane Kiffin, the head football coach Diesel at Ole Miss, joined Theo Vaughn's podcast. Oh boy, we'll bring you some of the best the best clips, the best audio, the best sound bites from that next. You know, Diesel, whoever thought, it's a good idea to put Theo Vaughn, the comedian, and Lane Kiffin in the same room together with a microphone. Oh, boy. But it happened. And we all know that Lane Kiffin is a polarizing figure, right, in college football. Love him or hate him. He kind of says what he thinks, right? He just loose-lipped. He says whatever he wants. He dates younger women. He does whatever he wants, and he wins football games. Doesn't win the biggest of the biggest, but
that's called a role model.
Yeah.
Dates younger women and wins football
games. Sign the state of Alabama up, right? But there's some good audio here, and we are going to let you Tolos react to it as well. And a couple of clips. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4 clips of audio in terms of Theo and Lane Kiffin chatting it up. The first one.
We should put these in the category of truth or BS.
Let's all BS. Lane Kiffin. I mean, I don't know how much of it. There might be a little truth. There might be. Let's start this thing off. And that's good quiet. Let's see. This one's about the group chat. This is probably my favorite piece of audio of the 4 because Lane's let it out of the bag before that the SEC coaches have a group chat. Theo asked him about it.
You were on a pretty famous text chain with other SEC coaches. This is alleged.
Yeah.
Kirby Smart, Sarkisian. What are the vibes on the chain? I feel like what is it like on there?
I feel like I keep it together. I keep the group together because one will beat the other or they'll say something and they kind of get mad at each other and then they won't text for a week if you beat him and he doesn't text for a week, or if they're playing each other that week, they certainly aren't going to say anything.
And by you beat him, it means when you guys beat Georgia last year, but go on. I feel it.
But then I just say something that night,
right?
Hey man, you'll probably get us next year, they don't think that's
so funny. Theo brought up when they beat Georgia last year. Kirby evidently didn't respond, Diesel, but rightfully so. You just got your butt beat. Why would you respond?
I love the fact that there's a text chain between coaches.
All the SEC coaches.
Love it.
Is that not great?
Hey, Kirby, the hell was with that food stain on your belly there? You couldn't put on a fresh shirt before coming out on the field? If you're going to face me like a man in a clean shirt.
Lane is the one that started it. So here's more.
They'll probably get us next year, they don't think that's funny. Then one of them side texts me hey man, you shouldn't have said that. Kirby's pissed off, And I'm like, dude, it's just a game. Relax. We're buddies.
Do you guys vote on how another coach gets into the text chain, or what is the?
Yeah, there's been conversations about that.
Really?
I actually haven't. They may not know this. Yes. I have multiple ones. Sometimes I'll say something, that guy's not in it, and that guy's, then this guy's in it, and so
oh my gosh,
somebody does something, and then I move him out of the chat.
No.
Yeah. It's happened. Jimbo Fisher removed from chat.
Wow.
And then they'll put him back in.
And just put him on the bench.
And they're typical coaches. They don't know how to remove somebody or add somebody.
Oh, yeah.
So it's pretty cool that I can do it. And then how do you do that?
Yeah. Yeah. Lane's one of them tech wizards. Yeah.
Do they use Signal for this? You want to put a Washington Post reporter on it while you're at it?
I love this, man.
I love it. How does he not? If he's got multiple of these chats going at the same time, he's okay, here's the SEC West coaches. Here's the ones that I like. Here's the ones, that we can go have beers with. Here's the stuck-up crowd. I love, but how do you keep it straight, Lane?
Lane is, he doesn't win the big games, but he's so good for the sport of college football. We got through one video without any curse words, which is great with it being them two on the stream or on the podcast together. So the group text was my favorite one out of all of them. Theo did ask him about transforming the football culture at Ole Miss.
It's kind of different between coaching in the Pac-10 or I think it's the Pac-12 or something now. Everybody keeps kind of changing their names. But
I don't think it exists anymore. It's Pac-2 now.
Yeah, Pac-2.
Yeah, it was 8 at one point. And it was 10. And it was 12. And
some of those teams should not have been in there.
And now there's 2. Okay. Everybody else left.
What was it like? What do you notice different between coaching in the Pac, a different conference as opposed to the SEC? You coached at FAU, you coached at you coached in the Pac 10 to 12, 8. What's the difference, you think?
Yeah. There's a saying in the SEC they coin, it just means more. And it really does. The passion in the towns for the football programs, the attention on it, and really the play over time has been dominant. The SEC's had more draft picks, more championships, all those things. It's just different. It's a way of life down here.
Oh,
and,
yeah. You know, people that can't even read but they're just yelling, go dogs. I feel if somebody come out of a coma and be like, go dogs or something, you know?
Yeah.
Or somebody come out of a coma and be like, huddy, and then just pass away. Like people's last words, baby's first words. There's like 30 videos of baby's first words being like SEC chants or whatever. It's a lot.
So SEC culture, according to Lane Kiffin, somebody who's coached in the SEC, Diesel, to answer the question, it truly does mean more.
Did they just call SEC fans dumb?
I think so.
Yeah, you can't spell football, but you can spell roll tide. You know how to say spell roll tide on the stream. The stream is going nuts with this conversation. Hey Kirby, can you stop bringing us negative publicity with all those speeding tickets?
No kidding. I like that, JD.
Could you imagine if Lane Kiffin's just texting Kirby Smart vroom vroom every time one of his players gets busted for speeding? Just put in a GIF of somebody doing burnouts.
A little emoji.
Kirby, what are you doing over there?
Oh my gosh, a car emoji, right?
JD says, "Hey, Mark Stoops, do you wear sunglasses?"
That's a good one. I like that.
To Shane Beamer, you going as a Gatorade cooler for Halloween this year?
God,
man.
You know what? Next time we have Shane Beamer on, we need to ask him about the Lane Kiffin group text.
The question is, how many SEC coaches do you think have Lane Kiffin muted?
Probably all of them. Probably all of them.
They just know. They know that they're going to get a text from Lane after the game, whether they played Ole Miss or not.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, here's Mark Stoops. He just got done getting beat by Georgia, and all of a sudden, Lane Kiffin's texting and talk trash about it.
You can't make it up, man.
Love
it. The next one, Lane Kiffin. This is a short one. Talks winning.
When you beat a team in their stadium, is there a weird energy there for a little? Like, is it kind of?
That one was, yeah. That one definitely was. Most of the time, it's not really. Sometimes I kind of like it, you know, like kind of walk off a little slow, you know, just so like you feel that win that you just like ruined 100,000 people's like, especially in the SEC, like week on this day.
Oh yeah, their traffic home. Yeah, that's a lot, and especially a woman who was going to give birth that week because her husband would be in a good mood, and now she's got to hold it another week. That's the toughest part.
Like, hey, we cannot have, we lost this week.
Yeah, we ain't having a baby under these circumstances.
You keep it in there.
Yeah. Hold the line.
We got Bama next week. We win that. You can have it Saturday night.
We'll do the tush push. That'll help.
You can't make it up, man. You can't make it up. Talking about winning in an opponent.
I have never listened to Theo Vaughn's podcast, but I will go find this episode to listen to. This sounds amazing. These are just the outtakes, right? These are the best ones.
Yes, it's only 4. It's an hour long. It's just so stupid. And then we've got one more. Talking about, this one's interesting in terms of what we talk about with recruits, NIL, the portal, Diesel. Theo asked Lane about having more money in terms of the student athletes. This is an interesting listen here.
Man, I'd have no problems.
Let's start it over.
If I had $1 million, man, I'd have no problems.
Yeah.
Then life would be great. I heard all the time with these players, I just get money, man. Players, I hear from adults. If I get money, man, all my problems, then I'll be good. Okay. We'll see.
When
I go in the homes and recruiting over all these years, I see the most problems in the families with the most money. Most money, most success. And then I don't feel any warmth in that room. I don't feel the connection with the kids. And then I'll go to a house here in Mississippi or Louisiana, you know, and there'll be 10 people living in this 2-bedroom house. And you just feel like the warmth and like the closeness and everything. And they ain't got hardly anything financially. But then they have this love and this family. And I just done this for a long time. And I see it usually the other way around. The bigger the houses, the more cars, the more money, the more problems.
Yeah. Are good players from succeeding, do you find?
Their minds.
Yeah.
A lot of them run fast, jump, throw, and it's their minds and then getting in their own way. You know, and then here comes this, now you got money too. Here comes this ego coming in because I'm a 5-star. I got all these scholarship offers, like the entitlement of that, and the ego comes in and out. Now they got the money too. So it's like they had this drive to get to the NFL because they want to play in the NFL. They want to get the money. Well, I'm getting the money already. So now I've lost some drive there.
Right.
And they just get in their own ways. and they get so much attention so early and so much. And then it's like they just think it's going to last forever.
Yeah.
And they just screw it up. So they get in their own ways.
Dang,
and it's usually that one word, ego.
Mm. Is that not telling?
That's the best. I think that's the best drop of the whole thing. And
gosh.
not the funny one, but that's the best one.
It's the best one. You're right. It's deep. It's deep. I mean, think about that. What he said. The homes part got me.
Yep.
The nice home, the nice homes, nice houses. I tried to combine homes and houses just now. The nice homes, Diesel, with the rich families.
Yeah.
Is that not telling though? I mean,
The families with the most money have the least amount of love and warmth in them.
man,
And it's usually the other way around.
and that's coming from a football coach who's been there. And I just think that does that not scream to you? That because this is what it screams to me. And I want to get to this in a second. This post from yesterday, I believe it was. Does that not scream this is why Nick Saban got out of football? I'm telling you, man, when I heard that, I just thought, this is why Nick Saban got out. This is why. Because he was in those homes. He experienced it. And you know what? I don't want to speak for Nick Saban, but don't you think he'd probably stamp everything Lane Kiffin just said?
Yeah.
It's sad.
I wonder, could you even break through to a lot of these kids? We've had conversations on the station over the past couple of months about, where physiologically you are as a 17, 18-year-old kid leaving high school, going off to college, and you're going to give somebody who's in a state of biological flux, right? Their brains are not fully formed yet. You're going to give them millions of dollars and a tremendous amount of attention and all the things that can, potentially ruin a young person and their demeanor and their personality, right? So you're fundamentally throwing a multi-million-dollar monkey wrench into the spokes of the tire here.
Yeah.
So I want to know, and maybe we'll try to get Lane Kiffin on the show.
Yeah.
Kidding.
He probably would.
What do they do? What can they do to try to ground these players? The entire weight of the world, the internet is saying great things about you when you haven't played a down of football at a school yet. And you've got money coming at you. You got attention coming at you. Like, how do you keep them grounded? How do you teach them humility in the face of all of that? And it just grows and grows and grows as you are playing, especially if you're successful. If you're a star running back and you have 1,000-yard season, all the attention is positive. There's not so much negative attention.
And truthfully, just being quite honest, I think, Diesel, that's probably why a lot of these coaches and a lot of these programs are built on principles of faith, because you are allowed, kind of like that Bruce Pearl audio we had a couple of weeks ago, you are allowed to teach these players, like whether you're a religious guy or not, you're allowed to teach them these morals of humility, like you just talked about, and staying grounded. It's tough. I'll tell you that. I can't. Going back to what I've said 3 times on the show already, the job description of what a coach has to do in today's world, it's unbelievable. I don't know. I was sent this yesterday. I saw this online after the Nico situation. I don't know if you've seen this or not, Diesel, and I don't know. I'm going to be very frank. I don't know if Nick Saban really said this or not, but I was sent this yesterday. It was a little bit of a lengthy post, and it's how Facebook, there are fake quotes all the time. I don't know if Nick Saban really said it, but whoever did say it, if it was Nick, it was well written. Diesel, I want to read it. It says, "It doesn't matter if you yell, 'Go Dogs,' 'War Eagle,' 'Hook 'em, Go Irish,' or 'Roll Tide.' No matter the colors you wear or the stadium you call home, every college football fan should be standing with Josh Heupel, because this weekend he didn't just make a coaching decision. He made a stand for what college football used to be and what it still could be if enough of us cared. He stood up for crisp Saturday mornings in Knoxville when you're when you're walking into a tailgate with your kids, full of pride, tradition, and orange everywhere you look. He stood up for late Saturday nights under the lights in Neyland with your best friends behind you watching a game that feels bigger than life. He stood up for culture the sport was created on, one built on loyalty, legacy, and the love for something deeper than money. Guys like Peyton Manning didn't wear the power tee for a paycheck. Hendon Hooker didn't stick around for a bidding war. They played for Tennessee for what it meant. And this isn't a criticism of the player, but the system that allows and promotes this behavior, like we've talked about. That NIL would tilt the balance, that the game we love would start to lose its soul. And here we are where the highest bidder can win, and jumping ship is just part of the process. But this weekend, Josh Heupel said enough. He drew the line. He chose Tennessee over transactions, culture over contracts. So whether you love Tennessee or hate them, respect the man who stood up for every fan who's ever poured their heart into the game. Thank you, Coach Heupel, for standing tall and reminding us why we fell in love with the sport in the first place.
Well said. Whoever wrote it, whoever
wrote it, whoever
well
said
said.
it. Is that not? I'm telling you, man. That's the theme that we've been talking about for all these days, for this entire almost a week now. When we found out last week that Nico skipped practice, that is the theme of what you and I and people who like Madcraft, who didn't want players to get paid in the first place. I don't think it has to do with we didn't want them to make money. We kind of knew what it would come to, and it has.
I don't know if that was Nick Saban because I didn't hear any heights.
All right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. All right.
When we come back, Cole, let's jump right back into that conversation about Nico and his departure from Tennessee, and Josh Heupel backing the fans who want things to go back to the way that they were when you love your program, and that's what mattered the most, the love for the game. A conversation we had with Ryan Schumpert of Rocky Top Insider about Nico's departure and all things therein on the other side of the break. Well, the offseason has delivered when it comes to just scintillating news in the world of college football. We've been talking about it now since Thursday of last week as we were starting to get wind of the situation involving Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleava. And to talk about it, go deeper into the story, we bring on Ryan Shumpert, who covers Tennessee for Rocky Top Insider. First time we've ever had Ryan on the show before. Ryan, can you help me out here? Maybe you hear more than what we do, but why is the vast majority of what we're hearing around this story coming from Tennessee, and we're hearing basically nothing from Nico and his team directly? I mean, if the weight of the internet was calling me a greedy scrub, I think I'd want to respond. Don't you?
Yeah, no, it's a pretty good point. I'd guess that some of it just has to do with the way things went down last week for Nico. Nico's team's last communication with the media was Nico's dad calling Pete Nakos a 5-letter word that starts with B, with maybe a 7 in there instead of a T. So the last communication with the media maybe didn't go the best. And then following that up with Nico no-showing Tennessee's practice on Friday, I think is probably led to them being quieter for now as they kind of figure out the next steps. Though I would wager in time you'll see Nico's team and Nico's camp kind of push back against some of the narratives against them once he does find a new school and is officially, kind of moving on from Tennessee.
Tolos, if you have a question out there for Ryan, let us know on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line at 844-FAN-PHONE. We appreciate you listening on 97.1 Spartanburg, 97.7 Greenville, and on the free Odyssey app, or watching the show live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Ryan, I would imagine by looking at your profile picture on Twitter, on X, that you're a pretty young guy. This is Cole here, by the way. I'm 28, so I'm in the young camp for now. But in your time covering Tennessee, in your time as I would assume a pretty young sports writer, is this the most juicy story, if you will, that you had come across for a sports writer like yourself?
Yeah, I'm 26, so I would probably say so. Definitely the biggest. I mean, look, I've covered Tennessee baseball. It's actually my first beat, and they're no strangers to drama and all that good stuff. But I don't even think they've had anything quite to this level. And it's funny, back in the winter, or really even go back to the fall, I worked on an oral history story for the 15-year anniversary of Lane Kiffin, the night Lane Kiffin left Tennessee. So I talked to a lot of people about that, and 15 years later, and kind of getting that perspective. And there, for the 10, 15 years in the past, there were a lot of stories kind of like this around Tennessee. They couldn't seem to get out of their own way, but things they've steadied a little bit. And certainly I covered the Jeremy Pruitt era, and all that stuff was, pretty interesting and pretty crazy as well. But I don't think anything, when you talk about kind of the lightning rod that this Nico thing has been nationally, I'm not sure anything I've covered has quite compared to it.
Ryan, can you take us a little deeper into the timeline of events and exactly how and when and by whom the ripcord was actually pulled? I mean, like we were saying earlier, there's not been a ton of communication from Nico. He no-showed at practice, and then, on Saturday, I think it was, the interview with Josh Heupel came out saying that, we appreciate his time and his efforts, but we're going to move on. So, as best you know them, how exactly did this whole scenario even happen?
Yeah, so Thursday afternoon is when Nakos had to report that Nico and Tennessee were negotiating. And then Thursday night, Nico was at dinner with the other quarterbacks on Tennessee's roster at the quarterback coach's house. Everything kind of seemed fine, seemed normal. And even Nakos' report just on its own wasn't anything crazy. I don't think anybody was shocked to hear that Iamaleava and his camp were renegotiating things. And then Friday, to me, is when things really got real. When he didn't show up at practice on Friday morning, Tennessee's last one before the spring game, and then was really not in contact, or Tennessee's coaches could not get in contact with him throughout the day. And I believe it's Chris Lowe of ESPN who had first reported this, but
I believe Nico did tell Tennessee's quarterbacks coach and offense coordinator Joey Halsley on Friday night that he intended to enter the transfer portal into Tennessee. I guess told Pete Thamel had to report on Saturday morning that the two sides were going in different directions. So while Tennessee did position it like they were moving on, and at that point I do think they weren't going to let Nico come back. That was kind of somewhat of an empty threat, I guess, because I think it was pretty clear at that point that Nico already intended to move on as well.
We're joined by Ryan Schumpert of Rocky Top Insider, who has a really good beat on the entire Nico situation. One of our listeners, one of our Tolos, Ryan JD, on the text line has a question for you. Can we ask Ryan if he is as comfortable with the quarterbacks behind Nico as Josh Heupel is the question from one of our listeners.
I would say if you injected Josh Heupel with truth serum, he's probably a little less confident than he portrayed talking to the media. Look, I think they're going to go out and get a starting quarterback in the portal, or at least going to try to. They're definitely going to add a quarterback. They don't just have now 2 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster. They only have 2 quarterbacks, period. They don't even have a single walk-on. They had 3 last year. 1 graduated, 2 transferred out. So they're just so low on numbers. They have to add somebody. And to me, Jake Merklinger, I think, is maybe capable of playing for Tennessee this year, but I don't think he's quite ready to be an effective starter. So I think you'll see Tennessee be aggressive here in the spring window and try to add a player that's capable of being a starting quarterback for him this fall. And just how aggressive they are will probably be a better indicator of just what Josh Heupel's confidence level is and the guys that are behind Nico.
So, Ryan, a lot of different teams' names had already been thrown out there in connection, not as far as they've had conversations with Nico, but just logically speaking, who needs quarterbacks and who may be interested in his services. A couple of those have since dropped off the list, like apparently North Carolina and Tulane are out on him, but USC, UCLA, Wisconsin, Syracuse, and several more would potentially be interested in his services. Are they taking a big risk bringing Nico into the locker room? I mean, if you're a coach and now that so many of these schools have player personnel GMs, would you even want to have somebody in your locker room who you now risk in the future this happening all over again?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I worry less about it in the locker room. Like, from everything I ever heard, I don't think Nico was a problem in Tennessee's locker room. I think for the most part, he was pretty well liked by his teammates. He's not the most outspoken guy, so from a leadership standpoint, I don't think that was necessarily a strength of his, but I never heard any issues about him being super disliked. I do think everything that kind of comes around it with his dad and some of the negotiating certainly would be a concern. And look, like, I think Josh Heupel probably handled last weekend well, but at the same time, Tennessee went across the country and they got a quarterback where they were basically got him just because they were the highest bidder, and then they lost him when they didn't, because he wanted more money. So I don't think you can be shocked that happened. Tennessee can't be shocked that it went down the way that it did, given how that they got him. And wherever or whoever goes after Nico and ends up landing him, I think they have to deal with that same question. That they have to know that there's a possibility that he could leave for more money down the road, or negotiations might be something that they have to deal with every offseason. So, it's a classic risk reward. What does any said team have at quarterback? Do they feel like they need a jump start at that position? Because certainly Nico's a talented guy, and I don't think he's going to be a cancer in the locker room or anything like that. But there are definitely some extracurriculars that would come with adding him, whether that be, maybe not particularly this offseason, but next offseason, as you would move into a potential second season with Nico being the starter for whatever program.
Ryan, with your position and having a little bit of an inside view on the Nico situation, do you have any stories about Nico or anything that happened previously? The reason I ask is I was reading something on Saturday that talked about Nico skipping out on I believe it was a TV production quarterback meeting or something to that effect last season with production, and then maybe the Thursday or Friday before the game where he didn't show up to that. And obviously athletes, that's not part of their contract in terms of showing up to media, things like that. But have you heard anything else in Nico's time that maybe was a red flag for those out there who were surprised by this?
This isn't necessarily during Nico's time, but one that I think maybe matches the billing a little bit, and especially when you kind of look at I think, negotiating blunder by Nico's camp when you talk about him holding out of practice. But what I'd heard, way back when in 2022, that was the year before he got to Tennessee, but he's already committed, and really was Tennessee's breakout season under Josh Heupel, his second year. That I'd heard after Tennessee beat Alabama that year in the fall, which I think improved to 6-0 or 7-0 at that point. Best start in a number of years, probably at least 2 decades, if not more than that, for Tennessee. That Nico's camp had tried to renegotiate his contract at that point after Tennessee had beaten Alabama, which from just a pure negotiating standpoint never really seemed to make a whole lot of sense to me. I would have thought Tennessee was in a little bit more of a position of power at that point. They were having a bunch of success without Nico, but that was one from just pure trying to get more money, negotiating move that didn't really make a whole lot of sense. That I hadn't thought about it in a long time, but it popped back in my head this past weekend after everything went down the way that it had.
Talking to Ryan Shumpert. You can find him on Twitter at rshump, SCHUMP00. We heard the audio from Josh Heupel. I don't know if you also heard the audio from Mario Cristobal, essentially warning players on his roster, if you're thinking about holding out, just go ahead and get out. In your mind, number one, should Tennessee adopt basically a zero tolerance policy for holdouts? And in your mind, do you kind of see that coming down the road for a lot of teams in college football?
Yeah, I think probably so. And look, every situation's a little bit different, where I think there's almost two sides of the pendulum where it's like, all right, if you're a player that's not big time enough or not good enough of a player, if you're holding out, like, what are you doing? There's no way that anybody is going to be willing to put up with that. And maybe there's a middle ground of you're a cornerback, like Ricky Gibson, for instance. Tennessee's best cornerback, Jermon McCoy, he tore his ACL back in January. Ricky Gibson announced leaked through, I believe it was on 3, that he, back before spring practice started, that he intended to enter the transfer portal in the spring period, which practice hadn't started yet, so he hadn't missed any practice, but he basically used that as a negotiation tool to try to get more money because Jermon McCoy was out and he was going to be questionable to be back for the start of the season, and Tennessee needed Gibson all the more now. And something like that, I think Tennessee was probably smart to negotiate and get it done. But I think it also goes to the full other side where Nico, in this case, for him to miss practice as the starting quarterback, going into his second year as the starting quarterback, as the face of the program, one of the leaders of the team, I just don't think you could really put up with that if you're Tennessee or in any other program, because I just think Nico would have lost his ability to lead if he had come back. And I think Josh Heupel probably would have lost the respect of a lot of the older players in his locker room if he gave in to some of Nico's demands and brought him back after he just skipped practice from a pure negotiation standpoint.
Ryan, kind of piggybacking off of that in terms of college football, the landscape of what's happening with NIL, with the transfer portal, what do you think this does for the sport of college football in terms of a tone that it may set, whether it be a good tone or bad going forward?
Yeah, I think that's a good question and a tough one to answer. I think really what will probably dictate that more is how Tennessee does in the fall. If Tennessee goes out and has another good season and wins 9 games or even 10 games and doesn't take a big step back, I think you'll see probably more teams, more programs willing to not put up with as much stuff for NIL demands when it comes to star players, because they'll say, all right, well, Tennessee didn't put up with it, and it worked well for them. It didn't cost them. So I could see that potentially being an impact. But look, I think that's already the case at some schools. There's a different. Each school is different as far as what they're going to, where they draw the line for a talented player of how big an NIL is a priority for them, how willing they are to meet those demands. I know Kirby Smart has talked a lot about that. So I think that's one that will be interesting to see in time, and just how this specific situation affects it. I think it's too early to say, and I think we'll probably have a better idea when we see what Tennessee is able to eventually do at quarterback and how they're eventually able to fare this fall.
So, Ryan, where does your crystal ball project that he ends up? What do you project his valuation to be? I'd be shocked if he got the $4 million that he wanted going somewhere else, but you never know, man. These a lot of these coaches and programs, they get desperate at this time of year, not knowing who their starting quarterback is going to be.
You're right about that. UCLA would be my guess. I think the combination of the Southern California ties, the desperation, it seems like UCLA does really need a quarterback. Their program's in a spot where they could really use a jump start. So UCLA is the one that makes the most sense to me. USC makes sense to me too, but it doesn't seem like there's been a ton of interest from the Trojans camp. So I think UCLA is the most likely. I'm with you. Skeptical that he would get $4 million, but I would bet he gets around what he was making at Tennessee this past year, and maybe a marginal raise from that. He gets a little bit more, but yeah, to the $4 million point, that would be pretty surprising.
Ryan, great stuff, man. Really appreciate you taking time to join us today. A couple of our Tolos have already told us they're giving you a follow on Twitter, on X, and let's do it again soon.
Update on the Fan Upstate. College baseball, Clemson hosting the league.
little bit of breaking news, Diesel, as we were just airing that interview with Ryan Shumpert, talking about Nico, as we're going to get into our daily wires. Wires? Yeah, there it is.
Sorry. Woo, sorry. Got a little sleepy there.
Got sleepy. Nico, the biggest story of the day, the biggest story of the week. We let off the show by talking about Nico. And Tolos, if you don't know, if you have not heard, Nico is headed to UCLA. Shocker.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas Southern Cal has plenty of money. Everybody's surprised by this. Your instant reaction, Diesel, to hearing the news that Nico's headed west?
Not surprised. I mean, he's from Southern California. Colin Cowherd apparently broke this news about an hour ago, though we didn't know for sure that it was confirmed. Nico's family has come out and claimed that it's not about the money with Tennessee, but it was about Tennessee's offense. Not about the money. When the whole thing was, I want more money.
So wait a minute. You think you have a better chance of winning the national champion? Honest question. Do any Tolos out there, Diesel, do you today believe that UCLA for the next 3 years will be in national championship contention? No.
I mean, they're in a conference where if they go on a run, they could make a playoff. I mean, it would be wild to see UCLA in the playoffs. Playoffs. I mean, like, you telling me that gold and blue wouldn't look good in a playoff? It would look great.
No, it would look good. It would look good.
I don't have any faith in UCLA. So have fun out there. You know, you went from a contender to a pretender.
That is true. Let's get into these daily wires, Diesel. The Atlanta Braves. I'm going to pull the music down. I'm going to do this all year long. No sighing from you. I hope Madcraft is watching. The Atlanta Braves, the 5-13 Atlanta Braves, lost today. Yes, they were so happy and positive. They lost 3-1, but it was close. It was only a 2-run game to the 11-8 Toronto Blue Jays. The Braves are now 2-11 on the road. Diesel, they haven't figured out how to win on the road yet, but we're going to stay positive because this is a really good Atlanta Braves team. They're really good.
It's a good roster. They just can't put it together.
And they've lost 2 of 3 to the Blue. Did I say that right? 2 of 3. Maybe they have one more tomorrow. But just a bad day for the Braves. That's right. Today was the series finale.
I mean, Toronto is a really good team.
They're a good team. The Braves, not so much. Spencer Strider, 5 innings pitched in his debut today. He allowed 5 hits, 2 runs, 2 errors, 1 base on balls, 5 strikeouts from the ace, and he allowed 1 home run. He finished the day with a 3.60 ERA. There you go. There's Madcraft. He says straight sarcasm won't work. Bro, I hate you, Cole. That's not true. You don't hate me. I'm doing what you...
But Madcraft, you can't quit him.
No. I'm doing what you said. I'm doing what you said, Madcraft. So don't come at me. Hey, the good news is the Atlanta Braves do not play tomorrow, Diesel. So no losing tomorrow for the Atlanta Braves. That's a good sign there. Let's see. In the NBA play-in games last night, the Magic defeated the Hawks 120-95. The Warriors defeated the Grizzlies. A good game. Ja gets hurt. That wasn't good. The score was 121-116.
I actually watched a large chunk of that game. Did I finish the game? No, I did not.
Do you know why
it was on? I didn't finish it because it was over at like 12:45.
No. The reason you didn't finish the game is because before Ja got hurt, one of his celebrations knocked you out. It hit you in his gun celebration. He was pointing it at you.
Oh, he did it again?
Yeah, no, I don't know if he did or not, but he probably did. I'm just hating on him.
A horrible finish if you're Memphis. Your final possession, you have a chance to. I think they were down 3. You have a chance to tie with 5.5 seconds to go, and you don't even get the ball in bounds.
Isn't that awful?
God, these are professionals, people.
It really is.
They're the best of the best, and they can't even get the ball in bounds.
Really terrible.
Can't even just like toss it up there and hope that somebody gets it.
Nico headed to UCLA if you just tuned in, but it wasn't about money. Big win for Clemson softball last night, defeating a really good South Carolina team 2-1 in 9 innings. How about that for the Clemson Tigers last night? South Carolina baseball defeated the Citadel 4-0 last night to get their 21st win of the season. And let's see, the Hub City Spartan Burgers notched a win in their home opener on Tuesday.
Go Boygas.
How about it? Defeating Bowling Green 5-3. They first pitched in about 45 minutes over in Spartanburg. Diesel, credit to Dylan Drelling and Malcolm Moore on their home runs last night. They are two of the top prospects in single A for the Rangers, but they get to say they had home runs in the very first game.
Love it. And they had some fireworks after the game, too.
That's right. Fireworks after the game. Gio Lopez, Tom in Somerville mentioned this yesterday, in case you missed it. South Alabama quarterback Gio Lopez in the portal. I'm not sure exactly where he's going to go. North Carolina stands as an option. Miami Dolphins also looking to trade Jalen Ramsey. Some beef there. Serena Williams clarified that her crip walk during Kendrick Lamar's Super Bowl halftime performance was not aimed at her ex, Drake. In an interview with Time, Williams denied any intention of shading Drake and expressed respect for him. The FCC received complaints, though, about her cameo and her gang affiliation. Former Florida State two-sport legend Charlie Ward is finalizing a deal to become the next basketball coach at Florida A&M following the departure of Patrick Terry III.
That's odd. You look at Charlie Ward and you think football player.
Yeah.
Football player. Nope, coaching basketball at Florida A&M.
Duke basketball standout Conka Nipple, who was fantastic, has declared for the NBA draft. Also, Diesel, probably the biggest news of the day locally in the Daily Wires is the closing the doors. It looks like at Limestone University, they're needing about $6 million by like Friday in order not to close the doors, and it's not looking too good for Limestone. So it looks like we had Brock Kamrick on earlier of the Cherokee Chronicle. The worst news of the day, Diesel. It looks like Limestone will be closing its doors, and that's just as we talked about. That is devastating for the community of Cherokee County.
Yeah, that is a tough one for them. The conversation is centered around athletic staff telling all their players to go ahead and enter the transfer portal, while at the same time, the university is trying to raise funding to keep the doors open. But if you raise the funding, who are you keeping the doors open for? If a vast majority of your student body are student athletes and you have just told them all to enter the transfer portal.
It's tough, man.
Yeah.
It seems like it's pretty much best case scenario online only, which I don't know how that would work either. It's wild. It came out of the blue today. It's on our website. It's on our Facebook page. It's on my Twitter, our Twitter as well. It's a Fan Upstate. So the full press release, though, from the university is on our website at thefanupstate.com.
When we come back, Cole, on the other side of the break, have you ever had one of those just terrible, awful, no good vacations that you say, I will never, ever, ever go back to that place again? What is that place for you? The place you would never go on vacation again. Next on the Fan Upstate. Cole, something we brought up during the Daily Wires got me scratching my head a little bit. Why would Con Knippel enter the NBA draft? Freshman at Duke this year, obviously behind Cooper Flagg as far as the player that people look at as the reason why Duke had so much success this year. 14.5 points a game, 4 rebounds per game, 2.7 assists, 48% field goal percentage. He's a really good player. But he wasn't a star this year, certainly not in the way that Cooper Flagg was. So I'm genuinely confused about why Con Knippel would leave, because depending on what the recruiting class looks like for the 2026 or 2025-26 season, I would think that Con Knippel is set up in a prime position to be the star player at Duke this upcoming season. So make it make sense.
Well, players don't care about that.
That's
they don't care. And the day and age we live in, like it's the one and done era. Excuse me. He was a really good player. Why he wasn't a star, I think a lot of that has to do with Cooper Flagg being on his team. Cooper Flagg, dominated the headlines and the radio show, everything. Con Knippel was a heck of a college basketball player.
Seems like a guy who is tailor-made at the very least to enter the transfer portal and make a lot of money.
Yeah, and again,
so that's the reason why it just doesn't make sense. Somebody is in Con's ear, telling him the wrong things, giving him a false sense of information, telling him he's going to be a better draft pick than he is. I don't understand it.
It's just it's where we are. It's the mindset. There are well, here's why. There are reports out there, Diesel, that have him as a top 10 pick in the NBA draft. So,
really?
Yeah.
I would not have expected that.
Yeah, life-changing money is a top 10 pick. And look, he is obviously projected to go behind Cooper Flagg. He's expected to be number 1, obviously, but Knippel was the second highest scorer, 14.4 points per game, 4 rebounds, 2.7 assists per game through 39 played. Look, I think he's a really good Duke basketball player. Will he be recognized as one of the best ever at Duke? Probably not, just because he played on the same court as Cooper Flagg did, but you never know. Yeah. I'll tell you this, depending on his landing spot, I think Con Knippel has the ability to be a really good player in the NBA. He's got game. That's for sure.
Talking a lot on the stream about how to save Limestone University, as Cole broke the news earlier today. Limestone University going to be very likely going to be shutting down their operations, and that means all the student body has got to go find somewhere else to finish their school. All the athletes have got to enter the transfer portal and find somewhere else to go play next year. Coaching staff has to find somewhere new to go coach next year. That's going to be, probably an easier task for a guy like Jericho Cotry, who's got a big name, but maybe not for everybody else, Cole. I saw that, man, this is rough, that the head baseball coach at Limestone was also the head baseball coach previously at Furman. So his program has been shut down underneath him twice.
That sucks. There's really no other way to put it. And again, for those that just tuned in, maybe just getting off work, if you missed the news, it's on our website, fanupstate.com, on our Facebook page, on our Twitter page as well. I was told about this last night and sat on it this morning. And Diesel, it's devastating, because I know people who work at Limestone who are, have fed their families because of Limestone. And I know people who play there in different sports. I talked to a football player today. I actually talked to Jericho Cotry today. I've talked to several people at Limestone. And as Brock said earlier, who joined us on the show, it is just a sad day up in Cherokee County, because it's that's kind of one of the only, if you've been to Gaffney, there's not much in Gaffney, especially downtown, other than Limestone. And if it does shut down, which all signs are pointing towards it shutting its doors, it'll be tragic. There's a lot of people who work there, man, that are losing jobs. And you heard the economic impact number that
$50 million a year.
Think about that.
Wow.
Think about that. That is on the Cherokee County. So that is economic impact towards Cherokee. That is unbelievable.
Better build a new car manufacturing plant or something to make that up.
And you're going to all of a sudden just take it away. So it's tough, man. My phone has obviously been blowing up ever since I broke the news earlier today, but it's sad. That's the only way to put it. There are people who are playing baseball this weekend for Limestone that don't know what their future holds, and it is a very sad day. There's no doubt.
Madcraft has a good idea. He says, if all of us Tolos band together and do a community car wash, we could hit that $6 million mark that Limestone needs.
Yes.
Dan B says, Mad just wants to see a bunch of shirtless dudes get all soapy. Madcraft says, don't tempt me with a good time. Now we're turning into the plot of Dodgeball. Right? We gotta do the car wash. We gotta raise the money. We gotta win the tournament to keep the university open.
Yeah, Madcraft, great idea. Again, be a lot of cars for that $6 million. Be a lot of cars. I mean, if you did,
you guys act like this would be the first all dude car wash I've been a part of.
Well, Madcraft's theory. Yeah, well, that's concern. 500 cars, Diesel. If Madcraft wants to do the car wash, Sport Limestone, he needs to wash 500 cars at $12,000 a pop.
Ooh,
that's it. Wash 500 cars.
He can wash 1,000 cars.
Well,
at $6,000 a pop. That's now it's getting easier.
Let's go to the phone lines. TA from Gaffney wants to weigh in on the conversation. What's up, TA?
It's hard for me to talk. My mind is blown. I just got in my car after work, and I'm hearing what you guys are saying, and I haven't heard that. I obviously believe you, but my heart is dragging on the ground right now. I mean, I've got a history at Limestone. My mom was the school nurse from my 7th grade year until I went off to college in St. Louis to play baseball. And I just can't believe what I'm hearing. And it just, I'm speechless, but I want to say something. It's just so hard to get it out there. This don't sound right. I mean, a school that you think of that I think of was kind of started by a Hall of Fame baseball player, even though it goes way further back than Gaylord Perry. But he certainly put Limestone on the map by starting a baseball program, got legitimate facilities for the size of school that it is, and the impact on Cherokee County. This hole is way deeper than maybe you know, or maybe you do know, but to bring in $50 million income to Cherokee County alone, something has tragically gone wrong, and it's had to have been that way for years. For all of a sudden, for all of a sudden to say, hey, you're fired, you're going home, you got to change schools if you can. This a burden. It not only affects the people on the campus, think about how it branches out like trees to families and to mothers and parents that are already struggling to keep their kids in Limestone, which is not a cheap school to go to. I just think there's going to be something that comes out that is bigger than what we're just talking about now. But it blows my mind. Way to cover it, way to break it. This is the first time I've heard about it. I was up I watched the news last night. I didn't see it, but I'm flabbergasted.
And TA, you know what? It's a great phone call because you just said it again, so I'm with you now. But I was going to ask you to make sure I heard you right when you first came on, that you said that this was the first time you heard about it. So you did confirm that. Look, appreciate you listening to the show. It is tragic. It's been happening. It's been, if you follow Limestone closely, there have been for years now people in the know who have said, look, they're in trouble financially, and now it all seems like it is coming to a head. And for people like you, TA, who are residents up there and live in Gaffney, it's I can't imagine, man. I really can't.
And not only that, lacrosse national championships,
5
baseball
times.
Players getting drafted. It's just unbelievable. I'll let you guys go, but I just can't fathom what we're talking about. It's blowing my mind.
TA, we had a call earlier on the show. We had a caller with Brock Hamrick from the Cherokee Chronicle on at the tail end of the 4:00 hour. And if you want to go back and check out that whole interview, he had just come out of an interview with the president of the university. So we were getting firsthand information as fresh as it could possibly be. And of course, we have that up for you on the podcast, on the Odyssey app, and at thefanupstate.com.
I'll check that out. Again, great show. It's bad news, but I'm glad to hear it from a Cherokean and someone close to Limestone. And you guys, great show, but bad day, sad day for Limestone College and Gaffney.
Thanks,
All right,
TA.
guys.
Appreciate you, man. Good call. That's I'll be honest. It's tough to hear, TA. I grew up in Bowling Springs, Spartanburg County, not far from Cherokee County, and have a lot of friends in Gaffney and Cherokee County. I'm glad TA called because he's right. It is just another story for a lot of people out there. It's another headline, right, in the Daily Wires, Diesel, but ultimately it has a huge impact, and it is devastating. And for TA, just getting in the car, hearing that for the first time, man, I hate that you had to hear it, but I'm glad you listened, and it's tough.
Fast and furious news coming out with regards to Nico Iamaleava, former quarterback of Tennessee. Reports now indicating that he is close to or has already signed a deal with UCLA to head to Los Angeles and be with that football program. The reactions are coming out from all over the internet, Cole, and this one's really interesting. This is a brand new reaction from Urban Meyer on the situation here, and he's directing his words at Tennessee. Want to get your reaction to this. This was his quote that he gave to 3 Times Option Show. Tennessee is screwed. They got a problem. Everyone's saying, nice job, Tennessee, making a stand. I've got a little comment on that. Tennessee plays Florida usually every year in October. Can you imagine that game's going the other way and Coach Heupel grabs the microphone and stands on the 50-yard line in Neyland Stadium and says, it's okay, I made a stand way back when. So Urban Meyer, it sounds like Urban Meyer would have caved to Nico's demands, given him the $4 million.
Wow.
Not that the coach has the authority to even give it, right? The coach doesn't have the authority. It's the NIL collective's money. The coach can ask for it. The coach can say, hey, guys, we really need to make this happen. But ultimately, it's not his decision.
So that quote that you just read, that's real. That really came out of Urban Meyer. That is sad.
Apparently so.
Diesel, that's sad.
Yeah, reportedly,
this is so sad.
This is put up from On3 Sports as of about 5 hours ago.
I'm being facetious when I say it's sad. It's shocking to hear that because Urban Meyer, come on, man. What you're telling us is you're selling your soul to winning. It doesn't matter at all cost. The only thing you care about is winning, and that's the problem with where the sport is.
Yeah.
You sell your soul. You just told us, we know that you couldn't coach in the NFL because you didn't know what you were doing.
You couldn't stop kicking your players, abusing your kickers.
That is so disappointing and sad to hear because I respected Urban Meyer. And that hits me like a ton of bricks.
College football needs desperately to present a united front on this Nico story. It needs all of its most influential voices. That means obviously Josh Heupel as the coach of Tennessee, the school that Nico is coming from. That means guys like Urban Meyer. That means guys like Nick Saban. That means guys like Mac Brown, legendary coaches who have won national championships. The game needs all of them to come out and have a united front because that's what college football has been lacking for a long time. There's no united front. It's sort of that prisoner's dilemma. Well, if they do it, we have to do it too. Now we're all rolling around in the muck and the mud and the mire. It doesn't have to be that way. They need every influential voice they can get taking the high road on this.
It just goes to show what kind of coach you are. And again, Urban Meyer probably cheated in his entire career at Ohio State. And I mean that, he's just a snake. I mean, that's what you are. If all you care about is the wins and losses, and I know that's what ultimately, I do know that is what Diesel coaches get paid to do, win football games. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I'm not saying it's just a game because coaches do lose their jobs because of losses. I get that. But for him to come out and say, Josh Heupel wouldn't stand in the 50-yard line at halftime against Florida, give me a break, dude. Go back to your bar and wherever you're hanging out with those,
shirtless dudes on his yacht.
Come on. That is such a bad look. never allow Urban Meyer to be let back into the college football world or landscape. Let's ban him after that comment.
That's sad. So, I mean, this is going to continue to develop. I did see one post earlier, just recently, Cole, in the last hour or so, that Joey Aguilar, who had been at App State, transferred to UCLA, is apparently looking at his options about re-entering the transfer portal and getting out of Dodge, because obviously he knows if UCLA is paying Nico $1 million, $1.5 million, those figures haven't come out yet. But if they're paying him that kind of money, they are not going to sit him. Well, he knows he's not going to play. So you got players re-entering the transfer portal who have never actually played a down of football for teams.
How about this? If we're going to have that conversation with Urban and that what you just said with the portal, let's ask the same question, Urban, when Tennessee's potentially in the college football playoff, like they were last year. Let's ask Nico and his dad and UCLA where they are in the college football playoff, because they're not going to be there in his entire tenure. Nico's not taking UCLA to the playoff. I'm sorry. It's not happening. That makes me so angry with Urban Meyer. Tennessee won. Don't let what Urban Meyer said resonate. Tennessee, Josh Heupel, 100% did the right thing.
I want more coaches coming out using the same language that Mario Cristobal had a couple of days ago. If you're thinking about sitting out, then think about getting out. We don't want you here.
I love that. Mario, I don't know if you'll be able to do that and stand by those words or not, but I respect the words that were spoken. We had a really fascinating conversation with Jack Veltri earlier way back when, feels like a year ago, in the 3 o'clock hour, Diesel, talking about Gamecock baseball. We asked some pretty wild questions when it comes to Paul Maneri and the future of Gamecock baseball, plus the South Carolina spring game, why Shane Beamer wanted it on a Friday. You'll find out next.
Is South Carolina Gamecocks athletics looking up or down? Well, a little bit of both. Depends on which program we're talking about. We'll talk about all of them right here, right now with Jack Veltri of Gamecock Central. We'll be talking Gamecock baseball, spring game, basketball, transfer portal, all of the above. Jack, welcome to the show. We appreciate your time as always. Cole and I were joking in the commercial break that it's a good thing baseball can't transfer in this transfer portal window. Otherwise, there will be no team left to finish the remainder of the season. Fast forward a couple of months as this season is coming to a close, or a couple of weeks as the season comes to a close. What is Paul Maneri's pitch going to be to try to keep some core of players on this team and in this locker room?
Let's try that again. Sorry, Jack. My apologies. Go ahead.
You're good, man. You're good. Can you guys hear me now?
Yep, we got you.
Yeah, so what I was saying was just, I think this last month, assuming this team doesn't make the postseason, which seems to be the case, I think this last month is so important in trying to figure out, okay, who are your key guys going to be that you want to bring back next year? Because there's only a few, there's some select guys, I would say right now, that you should definitely be bringing back. I think you have some pitchers that are relatively young that have shown enough this year to where you can bring them back. I think at the corners of your infield, the key cornerstones of your team moving forward are going to be KJ Scobie and Bo Hollins. But beyond that, I think there's a lot that you can it's not so much what does his pitch need to be. It's more so, I think, how is he going to, I guess, how do you kind of assess the roster and how do you move forward with getting, letting some guys go? You have to make some tough decisions. And, he's already done that in going back to the fall when he's had to cut a few players to narrow the roster down. I think you kind of have to weed out where the problems with this team are this year because, quite frankly, there's a lot. And then you have to really dive headfirst into the transfer portal again and into recruiting and try to reload and make this roster better from what it's been this year. But I don't think there's talent on this team. It's just it hasn't worked out this year to where everything is going according to plan.
It's really interesting, Jack, when you talk about this season because, listen, South Carolina baseball fans year in and year out are going to want to expect to win, right? Regardless of who the coach is, regardless of how many years he's been there. Do you feel like just from a big picture standpoint, maybe South Carolina fans are overreacting a little too much with Paul Maneri and the bad season the Gamecocks have had? And just in terms, Jack, of this being his first year and not really having the right players he wants on the roster.
Well, I do understand their frustration. Like, look, it's been a while since this team's been to Omaha, and they had to, endure the few rough seasons that there were under Mark Kingston. And you bring in a guy like this, you're hoping that, okay, this is going to be the right hire. Ray Tanner is going to bring in a winner, and he's going to get it right. And then you overlook the fact that Maneri's 67 when he took the job and all that because he's a winner. And even I was on board with the hire at the time. Like, I'm fully like, all right, this is going to work out. It may not be a great year one, but down the road, I could see this working out to where he gets South Carolina to where they want to go. But, in this day and age where, you can flip a roster in one off season and you can go from being really bad to really good in just a season span. I think people are upset with the fact that this team is so much worse than anyone really could have expected. And here's the thing with this program. It's not like they were terrible last year, but I think people are quick to forget for having a coach get fired last year. South Carolina did control their own destiny at one point to being a hosting site and being a top 16 seed in the NCAA tournament. It's just after they took a series against Florida, they got swept by Georgia and Tennessee, and that pretty much played them right into having to go on the road for a regional as a 2 seed. So you return a little bit of the roster. You brought in a lot of talented transfers and freshmen. Like, again, there is a lot of talent on this team. It is just for whatever reason, it just has not come all together this year. Some of that I think has to do with coaching. Some of that has to do with the players and just the inconsistencies there with the pitching staff and whatnot. There's just a lot of problems, and I can see why people are very frustrated with wanting to let Paul go after a season. But how realistic is that anyway? Because, if we're talking about firing him at the end of the year, how are you going to pay the buyout, right? How are you going to pay the buyout for the rest of the coaching staff after, Monty Lee's the highest paid assistant coach in college baseball. So, money does not grow on trees. And so you kind of have to really think smartly about the situation before having just an outward reaction.
Yeah, Jack, I was just about to ask you, like, what is the strategy? What strategy do you think Paul Mainieri employs with his support staff going into next season? It would be easy to say, fire them all, start fresh. But when you've had as much instability as you've had, maybe stability, even if it's not the best piece even if every piece is not the guy that you would want to have in there, maybe having some stability there would be the right choice. So which way do you think they go? Keeping this staff pretty much intact or making some changes?
I think they keep the staff intact. And number one, again, you just, like I said, Monty Lee's your highest paid assistant coach at, I believe it's like $500,000 or $600,000 a year. That may not sound like much. So maybe they can cut him loose if they feel like they need to. But honestly, I don't even think the offense is the problem for South Carolina. I think the pitching is more so the issue. But here's the thing with that. Him and Terry Rooney, the pitching coach, who's also the recruiting coordinator, they are very close. They've been together for such a long time now. They coached together at LSU for years, and they've known each other for a really long time. So they have a good relationship, obviously. And maybe if things don't start looking up with the pitching, Paul talks to Terry about like what they need to do next season and stuff. But I'm not sure if we really see them. I think here's the real thing. It's more so like if Paul's not here next year, then these coaches aren't going to be here next year. That's kind of how I look at it, because I think Paul probably will be back next year, but I just don't know, man. It's like, I think it's more so like, because I think he has a good staff. I think he has good players. It's just, again, you're taking over a program in year one. I don't think he or anyone, I think especially he didn't expect this league to be so tough compared to like when he was last in the SEC in 2021.
Jack, I'm going to ask you a crazy question to close the conversation with Paul Mainieri. Is there any chance in your mind that Mainieri just looks at everything that's happened and to your point just now about the SEC being so tough as it is, and just says, you know what, maybe I made a mistake of coming out of retirement, and maybe I'm going to go back to where life was a little bit easier? Any possibility? I know it's a crazy, far-fetched question, but any possibility in your mind of that happening?
I don't think anything's off the table, Cole. I think it's definitely something. It's like if the season doesn't start to turn around at any point the rest of the year, like if you finish the year with like 5-6 wins in the SEC, I mean, look, I remember Paul telling me when he first got hired and stuff, he was in Baton Rouge playing golf like 5 times a week. He's living out there with his family. Like, doesn't that sound nice? And he's only getting older at this point, right? Like by the time if he were to do the full contract, 5 years, which ends in 2029, he'll be in his 70s. And I just don't know if I don't know if he makes it the full contract, but like to be done after a year, it wouldn't shock me. But it's like, I think it's more so that's a decision that's going to have to come down to what Jeremiah Donati wants to do. Because again, he's not the one who hired Paul. That was a Ray Tanner decision. So I just wonder how there's going to be some important conversations that are going to need to be had after the season ends. And I think I wrote about earlier this week, you got to figure out, if you're Donati, you got to figure out where Paul's head is at moving forward. Because if it's not 100% invested in getting this program back on track, which I think he's got his head in the right place, but I think if it's not fully invested, bought into getting this thing going, then I think maybe you make a move. I'm not sure.
At Jack T. Veltri on Twitter is where you can find his work, Veltri. We invite all of our Tolos to go find him and throw him a follow. Yeah. Yesterday, we spent a lot of time talking about the Atlanta Braves and how many games we thought they might win over the course of this season. So let's bring that conversation to the South Carolina Gamecocks and set the over-under at 500. Right now they're sitting at plus 500, but there's not enough midweek opponents to keep them above 500 unless they win some SEC series. So in your mind, where do they finish up in 2025?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, they will not finish over 500 if they don't win a couple of these SEC series. Like, you only have 3 more midweek games left to go after this. That is, with 21 wins right now, I mean, you will definitely finish below 500 if you can't start stacking some series wins. That said, I do think there's opportunities to take series here, but I just haven't seen any reason to believe why they will. You know, like, they have Ole Miss coming into town this weekend. Ole Miss is a good team. You got Florida, Kentucky coming up. You haven't been able to win an SEC series yet. Your last series win came against Morehead State way back when in non-conference play. I just don't see any reason to believe that they can do it. I'd love to be proven wrong. So I do think they are going to finish under 500. And I mean, that'd be the second time since 2022 that they've done that. And that would be, talk about real low points. That's definitely one for the books in year one of this new era at South Carolina.
Jack, let's make this interview positive. Let's transition to positivity for the remainder of this interview. Is the South Carolina Gamecock spring game is Friday night. So just a couple of days away from today. Obviously, it being on a Friday is a change, a little bit different in terms of traditional spring games being played on Saturday, like the in-state rival had a couple of weeks ago. Have you, before we dive into the spring game, have you heard from Coach Beamer or anyone else what their reasoning was as to why they wanted to play their spring game on a Friday night?
Yeah, so that's something that has come up a few times now, and the way he's put it is that they're the only game on Friday that he says. So, you know, they're the main show in town, as he's put it, and more eyeballs are on them, even though in a literal sense, I mean, it's not going to be on TV or anything. So, you know, you're going to be able to have recruits there and stuff, and it does fall on Easter weekend too. So I think it's a lot easier sell to have the game on Friday. I know it's after work and stuff, so not everyone's going to be able to make it to the game. But
you're like us.
Yeah, exactly. So I think having it on Friday makes sense from that standpoint of, you know, you're the only game going on, and Friday night under the lights, and you got Easter the next day, so people can still travel, I guess, if they want. So that's kind of how he's put it recently.
Jack, you know, we spent a lot of time the last couple of days talking about the situation with Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee. Just wondering how you think Shane Beamer would handle a similar situation. I understand that everything is comfy and cozy and good to go with Lenoris and his NIL situation. But, you know, if Shane were to be put into a position like that, what do you think would be his reaction?
Well, he actually was asked about that the other day. I'm looking for the quote on it here, but you know, he basically just said, like, you know, you gotta be honest with them. You gotta be transparent, be genuine, and, you know, treat the players the right way and be who they say they are. So, you know, when he saw that news about Nico, you know, he wasn't freaking out about it or anything and thinking like, oh my gosh, like, what do we have to do to make sure this doesn't happen to us? They just have to stick to who they are. And that's why I think why South Carolina does seemingly pretty well in recruiting and bringing players in, because it's not just about being a program on the rise. They also have that, you know, maybe cliche, but that family and welcoming environment that attracts a lot of kids and families. So I think for South Carolina, like, I don't think there's really anything to be too worried about. Like, I don't think Lenoris Sellers is going to get to a point where he's asking for an exorbitant amount of dollars. Like, yes, he's worth a lot, but his play also backs it up. With Nico, I just think the situation is just asking for way too much money for being mediocre. And, you know, that's why we haven't seen a school flock after him yet to where, okay, we're going to pay the, you know, money that you want, where I think it's kind of going to get to a point where he's going to have to decide, all right, maybe I take lesser value than what I initially thought I was worth right now.
Jack, what do you think the biggest storyline is when you talk about South Carolina's spring game, their spring practice concluding, what we'll see on Friday night from tweets from you and others? What do you think the biggest storyline is? And if there's more than one, that's okay too. But in terms of the hype, the conversation surrounding this football team heading into the final parts of spring.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you could go with this, but I think for me, and again, it's just a spring game, so I don't think we're going to see, like, you're not going to throw the kitchen sink out there, right? But I am excited to see how much – it's an overarching theme here – how these guys look that are replacing what you lost last year, because I think that cannot be understated. I know the expectations are high for South Carolina, but let's also keep in check that they are losing a lot, and specifically on this defense. So, look, what we see on Friday and what we've seen in practice is not a foregone conclusion that, oh my gosh, like, you know, if a guy has like a sack or something, it's not going to tell me like, oh man, like that's the guy that's going to, you know, lead this defense and replace, you know, this guy that they lost from last year. Like, there's still a lot of work to be done until we get to the season to where we can actually judge these guys in real competition. But I do want to see how the new guys look out there. And, you know, that's definitely a big storyline, is everything they lost. How are they replacing it? And we'll get an early idea of that on Friday night.
Yeah, and Jack, what do you think position-wise South Carolina will be targeting most in the transfer portal? A lot of the news coming out, you know, in the last couple of hours has really been surrounding this basketball portal commit who decided to decommit. Not a lot on the football side of things. It seems like Shane Beamer's doing a great job of holding that roster together right now.
I think some of the main positions that they're going to be going after, and they already have so far in the portal with the addition of Damon Clowney from Charlotte, I think edge is definitely one where you need a little bit more depth. That's a position that Beamer brought up recently in a press conference that they're a little bit low on right now. I think defensive tackle has got to be a huge priority. I think that's probably priority number one, if I'm being honest. And then also special teams. I mean, Beamer was asked at the end of his press conference yesterday, you know, Mason Love, I mean, could he be a guy that holds on to multiple roles like place kicking and punting and maybe even holding? That's a lot for a first-year starter to potentially do. And I think he's going to win the punting job, but I don't think it's that far-fetched to say he could also be the kicker of this team. But I think if you're Shane, and if there's a good enough kicker out there, maybe you go out there and get the guy and just see what he can do, because right now it just feels like Beamer would be okay with having Love be a guy that holds down multiple positions on special teams.
And then, Jack, before we let you go, your thoughts on this weekend series, what you think South Carolina Gamecock fans should expect against Ole Miss, who are coming off of a 7-3 loss to Little Rock on Tuesday. They have really good lineup, or really good hitters throughout the lineup. Rather, Hill has one of their best hitters, batting .367. Hunter Elliott, 5-1, 3.92 ERA, one of their best pitchers. So it's a very formidable Ole Miss team that South Carolina will be facing. What do you think the Gamecock fans should realistically expect?
It's going to be a tough series, man, but that's what every weekend series in the SEC is like. I think if you're the Gamecocks this weekend, the number one thing you need out of this weekend, because you cannot perform like this like you did against Texas A&M, pitching's got to be better. Last night against Citadel was a step in the right direction, shutting the Bulldogs out over 9 innings. But you gave up 40 runs in 3 games of SEC play. The walks and the free passes were such an issue to where you had more of those than strikeouts. So the command's got to be better. We'll see with, you know, Brandon Stone's back in the rotation tomorrow, Jake McCoy on Friday, and then Paul Maneri did say he hopes Dylan Eskew will start on Saturday. As long as those guys can set the tone early and then hopefully your bullpen doesn't implode, I think you got a chance to win a series this weekend, because your defense has been pretty good, and then your offense at times has been a little bit sluggish, but I think for the most part, I like what the group's been doing lately. So I think it's going to be a tough series for South Carolina to win, but it all starts with the pitching, and if you're not getting good outings from those guys, I just find it really tough to be able to see them win. But I do hope people show up to the ballpark, because I think it'll be a nice weekend for baseball.
Jack, you're the best, man. Always appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks, Jack.
Veltri, just awesome. Go.
Just how much of a threat are the Golden State Warriors in the NBA playoffs? Well, they had two really, really big contributors last night in their win over the Memphis Grizzlies. Jimmy Butler, 38 points. Steph Curry, 37 points. I mean, he was draining them from all over the place, was Steph. That's not a problem for the Warriors. He can still shoot. Jimmy Butler is Jimmy Butler. Cole, but when only two of your players are really contributing meaningful points, I'm not sure that you're built to make a run in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's interesting with Golden State. They're a team that's still deadly. How deadly, I think that's where we have to start having the conversation, right? Look, getting Jimmy Butler in Golden State was huge, enormous. I mean, you couldn't use a synonym, Diesel, that described how big the acquisition was to get Jimmy Butler. So they're a formidable team now. They beat the Lakers a couple of weeks ago in a game that I watched where the Golden State Warriors, to your point, kind of had to have some players off the bench really step up. How far can they go? If that's your question, Steph Curry's on the team. So I'm not going to count them out. Steph Curry's still shooting at a very high clip, Diesel. I'm not going to count him out. Draymond's the wild card because, Draymond can win you a game, but Draymond can lose you a game too from getting kicked out. And he can, be hard-headed and do stupid things. So I think they're going to win the first round series. Do they win past the first round? I don't think so. I think they're a one-win playoff team this year in terms of how many rounds I think they win. Yeah,
I think they got a little bit of off-the-bench scoring last night from Quentin Post and Gary Payton II. Neither one of them scored more than 12 points in the games. I mean, that's good. You want your bench guys giving you double-digit scoring, but again, when you only have two starters that are scoring points for you, Brandon Podziemski, Moses Moody, Draymond Green, they didn't show up in last night's game. They've got to be able to get scoring out of more than two guys. Because when you rotate one of or both of Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry off the court, you got no scoring out there.
Sure. And if they were to win, and by the way, Podziemski, he's not like a reliable night in and night out guy. He had like 30-something against the Lakers a couple of weeks ago. So he has the ceiling. He has the capability of being really good when it matters. But if they match up against Houston in the first round, that'll be a really interesting series. I think if Steph Curry Diesel plays at his best, I think they can beat Houston. I think they can play with anyone and hang with anyone with Steph at his best. But then the next round, they'd most likely be matched up against the Lakers, assuming the Lakers beat the Timberwolves, and then we're going to get 7 games potentially of what we saw a couple weeks ago, which was the Lakers, the new-look Lakers versus the new-look Warriors. Mm-hmm. The Warriors got the best of the Lakers that night, but
that's a one-off.
It's a one-off. Yeah. It's a one game. Luka's going to be tough in the postseason, man. As long as the Lakers stay healthy, I'll tell you this, watchability-wise, what I want, yes, I would love to see the Warriors and the Lakers, the 7 versus the 3, because I do think you'd get 7 games. I do. I think it'd be a 7-game series.
Any way you think Dallas can get it done tonight against Sacramento, they are essentially the walking wounded. Yeah. Anthony Davis, game-time decision. Obviously, Kyrie not going to be out there for the team at all. Not a ton of injuries to talk about with the Kings, but no, the Dallas Mavericks, it would be an epic meltdown on Sacramento's part for them to lose this game at home against a team that doesn't have any of its best players.
Anthony Davis is game time. And look,
if he plays, how effective is he going to be? I mean, it feels like you almost have to play him unless you're just saying, okay, fine, we want to end this season and get out of here.
No, I do think Sacramento wins tonight. They're 5.5-point favorites. Sacramento's a good team. I don't know that Sacramento's a team that can make a run like they nearly did several years back when they almost knocked off Golden State. I don't know if the Tolos out there remember that series or not, but they've got talent. I think the Sacramento Kings do take care of business tonight. It's a sad story, though, when you talk about Dallas, and if it does end this way, boy, is Nico Harrison going to be kicking himself. But right?
You got to tell me, what was the projection for Dallas before this trade? I mean, were they a team that was going to make a deep run in the playoffs?
Well, I think they could. They made the NBA Finals last year. So They were a team coming off of the finals. Think about that. You made the finals, and you say, I think it'll be best if we trade our best player.
It's like the transfer portal. Some of these decisions just don't make sense.
They made the finals, and I can't. I just can't explain it. I really can't.
Yesterday we saw a bunch of news. We didn't talk about it in our daily wires, but there was a bunch of interview conversation with Nico Harrison saying, "I don't regret the decision at all."
Idiot.
What an idiot. I think you have to say it now. You can't go back.
Oh, no, you got to stay.
Oh, it was all about defense. Yeah,
that's defense. Right. That defense matters. Tolos, we are done, but we will see you tomorrow.